I've only seen the McRib. It looks very unappealing. I don't know, man. It looks terrifying.
I've also never had a
The
McRib.
McRib.
Yes, thank you.
We don't have them here, so we just have to guess.
We
what they
eat
taste
the
like.
equivalent. They serve the equivalent of McRib at like school lunches in the cafeteria. Like I ate basically a
terrifying.
McRib in 3rd grade, and then McDonald's had it, and I was like, oh wow.
Oh my god.
This is our intro, by the way. We're gonna run with this because I need to hear more about the McRib.
The McRib also is going away.
That's what they say. Like
That's what they always say, but that's the whole gimmick of the McRib, and
Not
then
gonna
everyone
lie.
drops what they're doing.
I'm getting it in while I can, but it'll be
It's
bad.
got huge, like, we'll bring back Slurm Classic and make billions on the open market. It's the McRib is the Slurm of breakfast.
McRib
No,
will
lunch
return.
foods.
Did you guys ever have this thing? Like, we had this thing in primary school called like chicken and corn, which is like, imagine a patty. Have you seen? Imagine a patty of like meat, and no one really knows what meat it was, by the way, but they say it was chicken, and it has like little chunks of corn in it, and it's just deep fried, and you have it in a little paper sachet thing, and that's the thing you would feed your child for lunch when you were growing up.
Is it like a patty melt kind of?
Not a melt, like just imagine, as I said, a deep fried chicken patty with little bits of corn in it.
Okay.
That was it, right?
The Conker's Bad Fur Day character.
So bad.
Oh my god!
And also meat pies, but we also don't know what's in those either. But that was
no, that's the thing.
So,
Especially in the UK as well. You grow up with a lot of like mystery meat pies. You just don't question it.
the original loot box. What will they contain? Nobody knows.
Hey, we had the whole horse
$2.99.
meat scandal, so could literally be anything. Hi everyone,
yep.
welcome to another episode of the Mystery Meat Podcast of Friends Per Second. I'm Lucy, I'm hosting this week, and joining me is Gerard.
Sorry, did you want something? I was just trying to be...
Sorry.
Hi.
I mean, for our audio listeners, he saluted.
Oh, you're right. You're right. I'm so sorry.
For the podcast audience.
I'm so sorry. For everyone listening on RSS feeds, I was saluting with my right hand. Hello, I am the completionist. It is nice to see you all and have you hear us.
Yeah. Jake.
Hi everybody. I've been spending a lot of time working on and really thinking about how in the beginning of the original Legacy of Kain Blood Omen, human Kain looks like Lord Farquaad.
I gotta look it up now.
Think about it.
Yeah.
I'm looking it up now.
I can't
What's
believe
up with
you've done
that?
this.
I've been
What
sitting
is
on that
the
for
deal
weeks.
with... Look at
Lord
Ralph.
Farquaad.
Yeah,
Ralph can't tell if he's going to be angry or impressed.
Thank you.
Yep, I can see it. I can 100% see it. You're not wrong. We're going to make sure Austin's editing this episode. Make sure you flash that up on screen. Podcast viewers, we apologize, but you're just going to have to trust us. He definitely looks like Lord Farquaad. You're right.
And for what it's worth, Jake, someone posted on the Legacy of Kain subreddit 1 year ago around this time the exact same statement.
It was Jake. We found
Jake's
it. We
burner.
found his burner.
Did we find
I'm just
you?
glad it wasn't me that came up with that, because that would be really broken brain of me.
I don't know.
Yeah. And rounding out the fort, we've got Ralph. Hi, mate.
Hello, what's going on? It's been nice, actually, this last little while, because the release cadence has broken. We're all able to get a little bit more sleep now. I don't know about you guys, but I've
me.
been getting some more
No.
sleep. No, you're still
No,
going
no.
all
No,
hammer and
'cause-
tongs?
No,
We
you
have
beat a
to-
game in like a day. It takes me a long time.
Yeah. No,
Also,
we have
I'll-
to do
I wish
our
that were
Game of the
true.
Year nomination. So this is now
Catch up.
like, I don't want to use the term crunch, but it's me basically going, okay, what did I miss from my list that I have to get through before our deadline in a couple weeks? So that's my life right now. Oh no, I have
Actually-
to play games. I get
Yeah,
that.
I know, right? I actually looked at my pile of shame. It is terrifying because I think I reviewed maybe like 22 games this year. And
Good for you.
when you say it like that, it doesn't sound like that much. You know what I mean? And then there's like 14 on my list of my pile of shame where I'm like, I really wanted to play fucking Immortality and Signalist and Tinykin and Ollie Ollie World and Xenoblade 3 and like, oh man, Pentiment obviously, which,
Yep.
hey, speaking of Pentiment,
Great link. So later on in the show, we are joined by Josh Sawyer, who is the director of Pentiment, among other things like Pillars of Eternity 1 and 2, Fallout New Vegas, some games that you might have heard of. We had a really great chat, and he is intimidatingly clever.
Yeah, he's cool.
But he was fascinating to talk to. And the passion for that where that game really comes through. And a bunch of us are playing it, but we will obviously talk about it later. Now, boys, it is getting towards the end of the year, which can only mean one thing. The Jeffs are coming. The Jeffries. You can watch them in IMAX this year. I'm talking, of course, about the Game Awards. Nominations were released, and as usual, boiled some piss. Is that a phrase that you guys have, or is that just a very British phrase?
We have it, but then again, we're like
Yeah.
85% British.
Is that what you do after you take the piss? Because I know you take the piss. You taking the piss.
Taking
You
the
boil it?
piss out of something.
Take it and
Yeah.
you boil it. That's right. Exactly.
just
That's
like-
the process. in a beaker, one of those like those long
Yeah.
beaker things. That
An
curls
Erlenmeyer
around.
flask.
And boiled pisses, someone's furious. The piss is boiled. And has been the case about some of the categories, some of the nominations for this year's Game Awards. We thought we'd go through them, chat a little bit about the categories, and see how we're feeling about them. So, do we want to start with the big boy, with Game of the Year? Because I feel like this is a pretty... The one thing... There's a big omission, which we'll get to, but Plague Tale Requiem, Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West... Stray, and Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
Pausing, just a bit of editorializing there as you're reading out the list. Couldn't even wait to get to the end of the list to start dumping on old
Mamma
Horizon.
mia.
Poor
And,
thing launches the same the week as Elden Ring, gets completely pushed out of the news cycle, and Lucy is not done sticking the knife in. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
I just have so many opinions, but my pack is full, so I guess I'll have to go to my stash. No, I mean, Horizon is a good game, don't get me wrong. It is not, for me, in that Game of the Year category, whereas a game like Vampire Survivors absolutely should be.
But have you seen how shit the graphics are? How could you call that a Game of the Year? That's just Xbox Game Pass filler trash, of course. I saw it on Twitter.
They added touch controls now. There is no
Did
escape.
they?
They
Okay.
added touch controls, so now you can stream it. It can, it's ruined me. But what are we thinking about this one?
Well,
Is this
I
a
think
pretty...
the rest.
Yeah.
Did we read out the rest of the list? Because I think I interrupted you before.
No.
she read all of them.
Xenoblade was the last one.
1, 2,
Okay,
3,
strange,
4,
okay.
5, 6
Only
nominees.
6.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
How are we feeling?
I think there, like the thing that always jams people up, and what I can agree with is that more genre variety. I think there's always those certain couple of games that people. There's always a certain group of games that always end up in these awards considerations. The big bang cinematic spectacle, massive budget games where some people out there are just playing weird little fun things, and they'd want them to see them represented a little more. So I totally understand that sentiment.
Anything? What's the biggest omission, do you reckon, other than Vampire Survivors?
Yeah, it's such a good question, isn't it? Go on, you go.
No, I don't know. That was me just being like, so many games.
Yeah, I mean, because it's so interesting. Because I mean, I look at the Steam 250, which I mean, Austin, when you edit this, you can bring that up and show it on screen and just scroll down it. But you're looking at, for example, Steam 250. If anyone doesn't know, is a weighted force ranking of all the games that have come out on Steam this year based upon the number of positive reviews they've got. The top list here: number 1, Vampire Survivors. Number 2, Stray. Number 3 is God of War from 2018, the PC port. Number 4, Power Wash Simulator. Obviously, a scandalous omission from the Game of the Year nominations, by the way. Spider-Man Remastered is number 5. Again, that was from back in the day, the PC port. Then you've got stuff like Teardown, Dwarf Romantic, great game, by the way. Neon
great.
White, which gets a look in later at the indie section. The Looker, which is a spoof on The Witness, and Persona 5 Royale, which is, obviously the PC port, long awaited. So, quite an eclectic mix there, I think. I think that isn't probably as reflected in the Game of the Year nominees themselves, because you've got obscure little titles like 2D top-down, whatever roguelike stuff. You've got weird power washing games. You've got a voxel-based destruction game. You've got this really chilled village building game in Dwarf Romantic. There's quite a spread there, and I do agree that there is often a very homogenized list of nominees for Game of the Year. That's pretty standard, like your Oscar bait stuff, right? It's the same in the games industry.
I mean, I like The next kind of biggest award then, I guess, is Best Game Direction. So Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, Immortality, and Stray. I mean, there's only 5 of those. Okay. Is it only Game of the Year that gets 6, maybe?
Can we just pause and ask a question?
Yeah.
Just because something is really popular like Stray, do you think it actually deserves a Game of the Year nomination? Because like I really like Stray, by the way.
I like
It was
Stray a
cool.
lot.
Could you
It was
argue?
fun.
Could you argue the same about Vampire Survivors?
No, that's a perfect game.
Or Elden Ring,
but
just because everybody loves it.
I agree with Lucy.
I'm
on
just
this one,
merely
so-
asking questions.
Hey, I'm just asking the questions.
What is going on?
It was the most perfect tucker that you just busted out of nowhere. It was amazing, okay? But I think there's something in Vampire Survivors. Vampire Survivors has really birthed a subgenre, right? It's a whole new thing that so many other games have tried to ape in the last little while. Versus Stray is just a cute little cat game. And again, I liked it, but also I think, does this really deserve a nomination for Game of the Year? That's the one where I look at it, I'm just like,
Well, we'll never forget that the internet was pretty much born on cats.
Cats.
So,
Remember that one that played the piano with his little arms? Incredible.
Keyboard
RIP,
cat?
Keyboard cat, RIP.
Wait, he died?
Oh, he died a long time ago.
Dude,
Jake.
that
I'm so
video
Wait,
was
he
sorry.
died
like-
a long time ago?
I'm
The
so
video was
sorry,
like 10
dude.
years old when it went on YouTube.
Yeah, dude. He was gone when it was uploaded, my guy. I'm so sorry.
Next thing you're
He
going to
died
tell
when
me,
we were still back on dial-up.
now you're going to tell me Star Wars kid is like a neo-Nazi or something.
No, but he's definitely lost a ton of weight and is no longer the Star Wars kid. So
Now
He's a Star Wars man.
Good for him.
Good for him.
I loved him.
Me too.
Anyway.
And I guess in a similar vein, what do you guys think? Because Lucy made her little sound about Horizon. Clearly, she is not a fan of Horizon.
A sound says 1,000 sounds.
Sounds. Do you guys think Horizon deserves a nod for this? I think this is a really interesting case for different reasons. Because I think it is the quintessential big blockbuster schlocky summer thing, like
Yeah.
big ass video game.
So just for clarity's sake, are we talking about Game of the Year or Best Game Direction right
Direction.
Game of the year.
direction.
Sorry, I've cut back. Sorry, apologies.
now? Okay,
Oh,
so
is
we're
it-
going back to Game of the Year.
Yeah. Do you guys think that deserves a look in for that, or is it missing an X factor? What do you guys think?
It's missing the X factor for me.
Yeah.
Because Horizon Forbidden West to me and Horizon Zero Dawn, they're enjoyable, but I always felt that they played safe. I never felt that like story or even gameplay was doing anything that wasn't not necessarily designed by committee, but designed to be as inoffensive. Also sounds horrible. I
Very
just
safe.
feel
I
like
get
it's a very
safe.
safe game. It's
Very
safe.
safe.
Totally.
And I think the character of Aloy is safe. I think what they have you do is safe. And I feel like when it came to Forbidden West, the big thing was like it's so much bigger, but I don't think it necessarily justified that size with filling the world with interesting things to do. And so when I see it get a Game of the Year nod, especially considering the other games that are in that category, and I'm heavily weighted on Elden Ring and God of War Ragnarok. I loved the first Plague Tale, and I will be playing Requiem. That is my game to do after Pentiment. But I hear fantastic things about that one. It doesn't necessarily add up to me, and I think, Ralph, what you said about this being like the blockbuster, and it's the one from Sony, and there was a big campaign about it, and it's like, it doesn't necessarily fit for me. That doesn't mean the game doesn't have merit, it obviously still has its fans. I enjoy it. I played like 50 to 75% of it, but I wouldn't say that it has stuck with me. And just like in 2017 when Breath of the Wild came along, I think it's because it was eclipsed by young Michael Zaki with Elden Ring.
Yeah, sure. I feel like Horizon is for me what Avatar is to cinema, right? Which is
Hey, listen. Wait a minute. Oh, sorry. The Avatar Defender has logged on.
I am the Avatar defender, okay?
Oh,
Because,
okay. Me too. Good.
Yeah, no. Avatar is a fantastic movie, okay? It just is. And it's like, I will fight anyone that says otherwise. It is so ridiculously cliche, dumb. Like, yes, it is the quintessential summer blockbuster, but the spectacle of it, the shit that goes down, you just want to sit down for 2.5 hours and watch a big ass movie with cool shit going on. Like James Cameron, man, he knows how to make those movies and he never misses. So I think that this is that same thing where it's like, I don't think it's art, Avatar doesn't stay with me because I felt something, but it stays with me because I'm like, God, that was such a fucking cool scene, or God, that was pretty, and that's the impact that Horizon left on me personally, and that's why I really liked it actually.
So you're saying Horizon is the Avatar of video games?
I know, which I said in my review, and everyone's like, dude, that's so rude. And I'm like, no, I mean it as a compliment. And they're like, that's probably worse. So
my only wish, I guess, is essentially for there to be one of those types of games nominated.
Sure.
Where I think the magic, what I think is good about the Game Awards is that a lot of times there's a game that pops up in a lot of categories or wins a lot of things that people don't expect, that a lot of people didn't know about and then get like exposed to. I mean, me, like when going along with the Game Awards stuff, I didn't know what Immortality was initially, just totally missed my radar. And I know that definitely happens for other people. So I just always hope that there's room for those weird games to squeak in,
For sure.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep going. We'll keep going down the categories. I think Immortality is a great shout for game direction, and I think it is, like Jake said, it's like one of those kind of unusual ones that maybe went under the radar, but it's so inventive. And then you've got Best Narrative. So Immortality nominated again. Plague Tale Requiem, Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok, and Horizon Forbidden West in that one too. And the Elden Ring one has boiled some piss.
A lot of debate.
A lot of debates about
All right,
Elden Ring and whether it's narrative.
roll your sleeves up.
Am I too relaxed about all of this? Because my answer to all these debates are like, Elden Ring shouldn't be considered for story. I'm like, I don't know, man, it's cool. Like, did you feel a story? If you felt a story, then you win, kid. I don't know.
Have you fucking seen a Vati video? Takedown of this lore? Like, I think there's plenty of interesting stuff in there.
I think I definitely saw some people talking about it. I don't think anyone was saying that it doesn't have narrative. I think it's sort of about whether or not you would classify it as narrative in certain definitions. Yeah. And I think it obviously is intending to present a very shattered narrative that leaves gaps for you to fill with your imagination. That in itself, I think, is just as valuable as a straight up narrative. But at the same time, it also calls into question, like, is it though? I don't know. Like, you look at the tightness of God of War's narrative, and you're like, yes, of course, that's it, right? Whereas with Elden Ring, you're like, I don't know, because those gaps are so large. They do invite that kind of questioning. I think it's valid to question that. But if someone's really gonna sort of die on that hill, it's narrative. I'm like, yeah, fair enough. If it is for you, it is for you. That's it.
Yeah.
I think anything, it was the most, at least for me, as someone who kind of just blows off From Software narratives and then reads up on it later and goes, oh yeah, that was cool. Elden Ring was the one, at least, that I was able to grip with the most throughout while I was playing it. I picked up on a lot and I said, okay, cool. And I was able to like remember that as I went forward. And I thought it was pretty good at being cohesive.
I also think it's kind of like a really interesting take on what we perceive as storytelling in the medium. Obviously, FromSoft have pioneered the breadcrumbs, the signposting, not pioneered, but certainly like popularized, and you get a lot of people imitating what FromSoft do with their narratives. And I think it's just, I kind of like it sometimes when stuff isn't spelled out for me explicitly. 100%. It's like the Jaws thing. It's like your imagination is way scarier than anything you could see on screen. And just like with Elden Ring and other FromSoft stuff, you can just fill in the gaps. And then you get Miyazaki come over and tell you did it wrong. Art direction: Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, Scorn, and Stray.
Glad that Scorn got a mention.
Me too.
I don't think it's going to win, but I'm glad it's in there. It deserves it. It deserves a nod.
Yeah.
Amazing game to look at.
HR Giga.
Yep.
Rolling in his grave, but happily.
Right.
I don't have anything about any of these games in particular, but I would love to see the Game Awards double down more on saying, next up, best art direction. Here is what the hell that is. They have like their statement that they make, for excellence and blah, blah, blah. But I wish they could do like some sort of like breakouts to show like a couple of people working in an office and being like, I'm an art director. This is what I do all day. Now you know, pick your favorite, you know?
I would really love that as well, just like using the platform to
Educate.
they obviously celebrate game developers and games that are made, but like to kind of champion the different disciplines that go into creating them would be really cool.
Well, it can help the conversation too. You know, so many developers take issue with players who are like, well, why can't you just put multiplayer in it? It's easy, right? Just flip a switch. Like, you know, there's a little bit more
Just
to it all.
change the graphics on level 2 and we'll be fine.
Damn, what a callback. But yeah, that would be great. Jeff, if you're watching, or I guess we'll tell you in person.
We'll tell them in person.
We'll tell the person.
Because actually, that's probably a good time to talk about it.
Oh yeah, I don't think we mentioned it, have we?
We haven't actually. Yeah.
Ralph,
Are we
go on.
gonna?
Want to do the honors?
No, you go on.
Okay, well, we're going to be actually, well, I am going to be flying to LA for the Game Awards. And
am too.
Because I mean,
Me too.
sorry. As in, you're right, because I always think of America as one place where you can just drive
Yeah.
everywhere.
No,
Okay,
I
it's a
gotta
big
go so
country.
far.
Oh, you
you're flying
cannot.
from one side of the other. So I was just thinking, I'm flying from Australia, but we're actually all Lucy, you're going to fly from San Francisco.
Yep.
Cool. We're all going to fly in except Gerard because he's already in LA, right?
Yep.
We're all going to be
Yay.
there. And we're going to do an in-person episode. And we have a special guest planned that we won't spoil yet because we're still working out the logistics, but we're very
Fingers
excited
crossed.
about it. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Gonna be sick.
But yeah, we're going to do our final episode of the year is going to be in LA in person after the Game Awards because we're all going to be at the ceremony there together.
Yes.
And we're going to do our sort of like post Game Awards wrap up and hang out and wrap up the year together, which is going to be super fun. So I'm psyched for that. 20-hour
really
flight
excited.
there and 20-hour flight back. Let's go, baby.
Got that Steam Deck. You'll be
Like,
fine.
Steam Deck will last me for 2 hours of that.
Hey,
Fantastic.
Depends on your settings, but you know.
That's right.
Yeah.
refresh rate. Come on. You got outlets on those planes, those fancy Australian planes.
Oh, yeah, right. Sure, of course.
So yeah, we're very excited about all that. And, I can't wait. I can't wait to see like the levels of hungover would be as well. Just post Game Awards doing podcasts. But we'll also have other awards to talk about. So there's best score and music. So Plague Tale Requiem, Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok, Metal Hellsinger, and Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I'm really glad Metal Hellsinger got a nod in here.
Yeah,
Because
that's cool.
that soundtrack rips.
They got Surge. I mean, come on. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
It's very cool of them. I'm always a sucker for a Xenoblade soundtrack as well. I haven't actually played 3 yet, but every Xenoblade I've played, soundtrack's always top tier.
Mitsuda does not mess around.
Yeah.
yeah.
Mitsuda don't miss. Best performance. So Ashley Birch from Horizon Forbidden West, Aloy, Charlotte McBurney, Plague Tale Requiem, Amicia, Christopher Judge, God of War Ragnarok, obviously Kratos, Manon Gage, Immortality. Is she the main
Yes.
person? And Sunny Suljic, God of War Ragnarok, playing Atreus. I will say, I think Christopher Judge and Sunny Suljic did an amazing job in God of War Ragnarok. However, I will say Danielle, aka Freya, should have been in here.
Yeah, I would have
She
loved to have seen her.
Oh,
in
yeah.
there.
crushed in that
Yeah.
game. There are certain scenes, and I'm not going to mention them in case folks are still playing it, but there were some scenes where I was like, damn, okay. Yeah, she's going for it.
True. Very true.
I think that's a
I would say
good-
you haven't played what do you call it, Plague Tale yet, but
She was
Charlotte
great in the
McBurney
first game.
Really crushed it. Big step up versus the first one as well. Like
Yes.
just huge difference. And not that the first one was bad, but just found a whole other level with this one. I think it was really, really top tier. I really hope she takes that one home.
Me too. What other like good performances have been from this year? I would say like even some of the folks from Elden Ring, like there were some
all
great
just talk
performances,
quietly
but they're all
like
all quite brief.
So you're the turtle pope. You're just hoping the turtle
Yeah,
pope
I
takes it
just-
home, don't you?
Look, if Jeff can get Pot Friend on stage, he can get Turtle Pope in. Okay,
I would
That's all I'm
hope,
saying.
yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Sure.
This is always the point of the year where I'm like, what did I even play this year?
Oh, it's so like that, isn't it? No,
But also got best ongoing game. I wonder what Ralph is gonna pick.
I mean,
this
I
one.
actually wouldn't say Destiny 2 this year, but don't get
Wow.
me started on the reasons why, but definitely not. I really would not put it up there. As much as I love that game, it's had a lot of challenges this year. So, yeah.
So Apex, Destiny 2, Final Fantasy 14, Fortnite, and Genshin Impact.
No idea. I've only played one of those, so.
My only ongoing game is Overwatch 2 and Marvel Snap. So, you know.
Funny
Yeah,
that,
not to
that
say-
ongoing
no
game doesn't
Overwatch.
include Overwatch 2.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Well, it's had some challenges.
Is it considered an ongoing game? Or is it a reboot?
I would say it's an ongoing game. Although, you know, it's currently selling $10 May skins and May is currently not playable.
Oh, rip.
So things are going great over there. No, it's been a bit of a challenging launch, but it's still a great game. Okay, the Overwatch defender has logged off. Best indie. Now this is probably my favorite category because I think it has such a great mix. So Cult of the Lamb, Neon White, Sifu, Stray, and Tunic.
How do you not put
But also-
Vampire Survivors on this one? Game of the year.
It's in the other one. It's in the other one.
Right. But also, half of the best indie of the year list is also on the best debut indie list.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Doesn't
no.
make sense.
I agree.
Make it make sense. Yeah, but I think that's a pretty great. I'm really glad to see more nods for Neon White, just because I forgot the stranglehold that game had on me, but also like Giant Bomb.
Yeah, they were into
All
it.
of us were playing. We had like this big invitational where we had Nextlander on and Alex Boniello, Tony Award winning Alex Boniello, who is weirdly incredible at that game. But no, it was I'm kind of getting like the primary recency bias of like games that I played at the beginning of the year and then games that I played recently. So I'm trying not to forget the stuff that kind of came out in the middle.
Like, for example,
Like
Nobody
Tinykin.
Saved the World. Yeah.
Nobody Saves the World.
Nobody Saves
That
the World,
game
I
was
reckon, really deserves
amazing. Should be
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
best indie list
a look
for
in,
sure.
a look in there. And Tinykin as well. I didn't play that. Well, I've only played a few minutes of it, but everyone says that was fantastic. And
Great.
yeah, you're right. It is that recency bias definitely kicks in hard with this sort of stuff. So yeah.
Best debut indie. So we kind of been through half of these: Neon White, Norco, Stray, Tunic, and Vampire Survivors. Norco is one that's on my list. Like I have it.
Yeah.
I have heard nothing but good things about it. I just haven't had a minute to boot it up.
Yep.
Best mobile. I would love to present an award. I think I would do a really good like voice for it.
What do you guys think?
Wait,
of,
you're not
of
supposed.
Diablo?
Do you have to do a voice?
Well,
Can't
no, you have
just
to go
be
like-
you?
And the nominees for best mobile are
Oh yeah, that'll be cool.
Apex Legends Mobile, Diablo Immortal, Genshin Impact, Marvel Snap, and Tower of Fantasy. I would go really
That's pretty
fresh
good.
for
That's
it.
pretty
Would
cool.
crush
yeah.
it.
Yeah,
You should
nice
just do
job.
voice. You should be the voiceover lady for the whole awards, not just one category. Like
I
that's it.
used to do a please welcome to the stage from 343 Industries, Bonnie Ross. That was like my Xbox voice that I would
Holy
do.
shit!
Sound like the announcer from League of Legends.
The red team, it has been invaded.
That's right.
No, I mean, I'm kind of surprised with Best Mobile because I play a lot of like Apple Arcade stuff, and to see none of those on there except
Yeah.
it was Tower of Fantasy Apple Arcade. I forget, but like
I don't know. I actually want to know how this list came about. Like, I want to know. I don't know how does this list originate? Do they give you, as a member of the judging panel, do they give you a list of games to vote on, like a pre-populated list?
Nope.
Or you just list your own?
Yeah, you completely come up with your own.
Okay, so that means a whole bunch of journalists decided that Diablo Immortal should be on this list for the best mobile game of the year.
Essentially,
That's
yes.
fucking wild.
Journalists
That's-
from all different countries and stuff.
That
That's super wild to me.
That in this instance, Ralph, maybe again, I'm not a games journalist, right? Maybe the mentality is, hey, I've only played so many mobile games this year. Diablo Immortal's one
Yeah,
that was
I
in the
guess
news
so.
the most. I guess that's the one that I identify with because
Yeah. Literally
Apple-
just a game that everyone universally despised for, like, and not universally, but most people just like absolute derision
Yeah.
and hatred. It was just, that was it. And it was kind of just like, I just don't understand how that gets on a list then. I don't care how good the graphics are. Like,
The only counterpoint I'll have
Clearly-
to that is, and it's not, I'm not defending the game by any means, but the fact that there are a ton of different countries in this pool. It's not just IGN journalists and, GameSpot and Eurogamer journalists. They have a lot from different territories like Brazil, India, South Korea.
Yeah, that
and we've
makes
talked in the
sense.
past about how some of those audiences embrace mobile a little bit more. So maybe that reflects their outlets. They're
Yeah, okay.
I don't know. That's
That's
just
a
me
fair point.
spitballing.
No, it's a fair point. It's possible. Yeah, sure. Sure.
Best VR/AR. When did Resident Evil 4 VR come out?
Was
that this year?
Remember.
I think
Was it
that was
last
last
year?
year.
Was that a meta exclusive or whatever?
Yeah.
I believe so.
Yeah, right. Okay, cool.
Because it's After the Fall, Among Us VR, Bone Lab, Moss Book 2, and Red Matter 2.
I did hear a lot about Bone Lab when it came out. I hadn't played
Yes.
it, but everyone was going on about how that is just the best thing that you can get your hands on this year for VR. Like that was it was the Half-Life Alex, the one that everyone's like, you gotta check this out, you know?
Yeah, especially because they're coming off of their previous game. The VR community was super down with it. So
Best Action, Bayonetta 3, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, Neon White, Sifu, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge.
It's nice that that's on there.
I
Honestly,
really like that that's on there. I had a
I'm-
blast with that
I'm
game.
actually surprised that TMNT did not get more nominations throughout this list.
It was so good.
Really?
Yeah, I
What
thought
else would you nominate it for?
Music.
music for sure. T-Lopes crushed the soundtrack. And I also would argue, and I know people wouldn't really necessarily agree with me, it's an indie game. It's made by Tribute Games. While it was paid for by Nickelodeon, Tribute Games is a very small studio, and they've never made any AAA game or even a AA or single A game before. So to them, like, I know it's like technically they got paid a bunch of money by Nickelodeon, but I don't know. It's made by an indie team. I would consider it to be indie.
yeah,
Best
good point.
Action Adventure, Plague Tale Requiem, God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, Stray, and Tunic.
Yep.
Yep. Best Role Playing, Elden Ring, Live Alive?
Yep.
Live Alive, Pokemon Legends,
Arceus.
Arceus, Triangle Strategy, forgot that came out this year, Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
Surprised that
These-
Pokemon
these-
Legends is on there. I heard it was like pretty mid. It was like, yeah, this could be cool one day, but it's kind of pretty average for what it is now. I'm not sure. I haven't played it.
I'm not a Pokemon person,
It's
honestly.
the reason why it's so good for me is it's like a completionist itch scratch, like everything micro achievements all over the place. It feels good. You're constantly
Yeah.
being rewarded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was fairly fresh. I love seeing on this category though a lot of Japanese influence.
Yes.
Very cool. Like they just
Yeah.
dominated it, dude.
100%. Best Fighting, we've got DNF Duel, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure All-Star Battle R, a game that I can't play because of spoilers, but still, I love it. The King of Fighters 15, Multiverses, and Sifu.
Yeah,
Sifu?
Sifu is interesting because there's the whole thing of where it's like it's single player. Like you are fighting
Yeah.
men in the game, but it's a third person adventure game, action adventure game. Like is it fighting? I mean, like maybe,
It's kind of like it has fighting in it, thus it is considered a best fighting game. But to me, a fighting game is classified as a playing against another player. Is it not?
Yeah.
To everyone, that is the definition. Like,
That's
I don't
how
think
I
anyone
agree.
looks at this and think, yes, Seafood belongs in that category. I think it deserves
I
a
mean-
spot. Everyone's like, what the fuck? Like,
Action Adventure
ridiculous.
is where I could have seen it, but yeah, it's a strange inclusion in this one. I mean, yeah, I don't know. An interesting one. Best Family, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, mouthful mode, Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga, Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope, Nintendo Switch Sports, and Splatoon 3. That's a good category, man.
It is.
That's
actually.
those are 5 really good games.
the only thing is like I wish it wasn't just like, oh, just dump all the Nintendo games into
That's
the
how
family
it is
category.
every year.
I know,
Every
I know.
year they do that.
I know.
Look, I mean, there obviously is Lego Star Wars, which is not a Nintendo game.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, neither is Mario Rabbids. It's
Okay.
actually a Ubisoft game.
All right.
Well, actually, no,
But I take your point, though. I take your
Technically
point.
correct, the best kind of correct.
Actually.
Actually, I think you'll find.
actually,
Well, Lego Star
yeah.
Wars being a nominee is very cool. I don't know if a Lego Star Wars game has ever, or a Lego game has ever reached such heights before, such prestige. I don't know. I can't think off the top of my head. So good for them.
I haven't played.
Lego Lord of the Rings was legit.
I haven't played any of those games except for Lego Star Wars, but I did play the first Mario Rabbids, so I know that one. But I would be very happy to see Lego Star Wars take the win on that. I think that was a fantastic game. I really loved it.
it's cool.
I just I thought it was the whole top to bottom package. So yeah.
Best sim/strategy: Dune Spice Wars, Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope, Total War Warhammer 3, 2 Point Campus, and Victoria 3.
Good stuff.
That was I played a lot of 2 Point Campus this year. I thought that was a very fun one. Very British. Very British.
Really? How so?
Yeah.
Like the humor, the vibe?
Yeah, the humor is all
Cool.
it's university stuff. It's just, some of the names would just take the piss out of like British jokes. I'm pretty sure there was like a Boaty McBoatface kind of thing in there as well. Like they really went for it.
That went global though.
Oh, it did. But
Oh, that was a Bodie McBoatface is a British thing? I thought that was just
Yeah.
annoying people.
no, that was
So funny.
I
They
can't
were
remember who it
voting on
was,
them.
but that you could vote on the name of something, and
Yeah.
Boaty McBoatface just
Of a new ferry, wasn't it? Wasn't it
Yeah.
one of the ferries?
Oh, and that was
Yeah.
originated there. Okay. Okay.
Love it.
best sports/racing: F1 22, FIFA 23, NBA 2K23, Gran Turismo 7, and Ollie Ollie World.
I would just like that to win. Just
Yeah,
because
nice of
it'd
it
be
to
nice.
squeeze in there.
Me
Yeah.
too.
It'd be
Yeah.
nice.
That'll be
Yeah.
fun. Best multiplayer: so Modern Warfare 2, Multiverses, Overwatch 2,
There you go.
Splatoon 3, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Shredder's Revenge.
TMNT once again is the weird stand-up in this category.
But it was a
because
blast.
Technically, it has
But it's
online
co-op.
multiplayer. It is co-op, but the other games literally are a multiplayer experience of several players versus several other players.
Yeah.
But TMNT is what multiplayer was, or what it should
Yeah.
be, in my
But it
opinion.
should be.
I'm not.
Back in
I'm,
my day.
I'm on your team, Jake.
Most anticipated: Final Fantasy 16, Hogwarts Legacy, Resident Evil 4, Starfield, The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom.
I believe Zelda was on the list last year as well.
Yes,
So-
I think it was. But
It'll be on the
Elden
list
Ring.
next year, most
Yeah.
likely.
Elden Ring won last year, didn't
Elden
it?
Ring 1, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
It's such a shitty category, can I say? I don't think we should be voting on which games we're most hyped about.
Yeah.
Like, it's just kind of lame.
It's like being like best trailer,
unless it was like a trailer awards ceremony.
best trailer.
Best trailer.
Best pre-order bonuses.
Oh, oh,
best DLC development.
That's right. Best
God.
live service roadmap. All of these are just this is the horror version of the Game Awards. When the game publishers have finally won, this will be the awards. you know?
Yeah.
Best delay tweet graphic.
Oh, that is good.
That is good.
That is very
Yeah.
good.
Best
I love how that's its own category. That's its own niche now.
best gamer
Yep.
tweet.
best heated gaming moment.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Speaking of heated
of-
gaming moments.
Content creator of the year. Carl Jacobs, Ludwig, Nebellion, Nobrew, and QT Cinderella.
I know some of those people.
I know
always have to
three of
every
those.
year I have to Google
This is-
some of these nominees
this
because
is-
I have no fucking clue.
This is the one year where I know everyone.
Okay.
The thing that I think is I think Lucy, you and I talked about this last night. I was in San
We
Francisco
did.
last night for a little bit.
Yeah,
I
we
got to
hung out. We got
yeah,
pizza.
Yeah, it was great. I think the thing is that these categories, it used to be trending gamer, right? And then it got boiled down to content creator. I think content creator is too broad, and I think you have to be able to create lines of space for everyone. Like to me, streamer of the year is not the same as content creator of the year. You could argue that content creation comes out of streaming and goes into a content system like YouTube or whatever it may be, even TikTok at that point, but it just feels a little too broad. I would get specific on it. And otherwise, like and this category, correct me if I'm wrong, judges in this call, it's all voted by the audience, right?
I believe this one is.
Believe
yes.
so.
So this
Or
category,
significantly weighted.
correct. So this category is, hey, YouTuber, streamer, TikToker, whoever's in this category, send your audience to our website to vote for the favorite one, to drive traffic, to appease advertisers. No offense, Jeff. I know what you're doing. It's okay. I get it.
Smart business.
I get it. I just think it's weird because, I mean, yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, the category is even described as contributions to the gaming community, and
Interesting.
Some of the big streamers are streamers who, you know, a significant portion of the time play games, but I'm not going to single anyone out, but not always as like in the trenches. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where
They don't need to be.
Nebellion being nominated, as much as people are debating whether or not he creates content just because he's a presence on social media more than anything, he, at the very least, I think is weighted more towards contributions to the gaming community, being a source of information, being in the trenches.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't.
I would nominate Kojima in this slot for content creator of the year because even though he hasn't put out a game this year, he just should get it anyway. That's not true. He's put out a banging podcast. Boom, he wins.
Yeah.
That's
Content.
it. Done.
Content
And,
created.
Content.
You know,
Yep.
Death Stranding came to Game Pass. So, you know, he's done
That
both.
is content right there. Can't argue with
Yeah.
that. It's facts.
Yeah. All right.
Best Adaptation. Arcane, League of Legends. Cyberpunk Edge Runners. The Cuphead Show. Sonic the Hedgehog 2. And Uncharted.
So what I will say is that this is a new category, I believe, and I think they picked a really good year
This is a good,
to start it as a new category because there's so many good entries.
Yeah, I think so.
And Uncharted. I'm kidding. It wasn't that bad.
There's
Every
gonna be a
piece of
fist that
media
just
has value.
Sails through the air into Jake's chin right now, and Marky Mark will kind of stand over you and be like, "How fucking dare you, man? You take that back."
Hey, Jake.
Always listening.
Jake, you didn't like my movie, Jake? Why not, huh? What's your
I was
problem with my
silly,
movie, huh? I'm
Try next time.
I'm too young to be Drake, but I could have been. Come on.
Yeah, when we started this process, I was Drake.
Listen,
And
he
now
phoned
I-
it in. He phoned it in as Maximilian Payne. That's not his real name. He phoned it in as Max Payne. He
Don't.
phoned it in as Sully. Who's next?
Look, we still have Boogie Nights, so we're fine. Boogie
Yeah,
Nights,
that's true.
you know.
Fuck it. He can replace Chris Pratt at this point. Let's just do it. Wow, I'm Mario. What's up?
Yeah,
Honestly, I
We'll go
think,
to the Mushroom Kingdom.
could work. I'd actually be more down for that.
I think a Boston guy is pretty
Chris
good. Yeah,
Pratt, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And I don't dislike Chris Pratt. It's just that I actually like the sound of Marky Mark as Mario. It actually works.
Yeah.
This category is tough. I mean, I obviously really loved Edge Runners a lot, and obviously Raffle came on the show, and it was amazing to chat with him. However, as much as I love that, I got to say Arcane is just like unbelievable, just truly remarkable, like just incredible. And so that would be my personal. It would edge out Edge Runners. Yeah,
Did
there we go.
you guys see the trailer for the Dragon Age show, by the way?
No.
It looks really good.
didn't even know
I'm not
about
just
it.
saying that as
Yeah.
a Dragon Age fan, but they're making a Netflix animation
Sick.
for Dragon Age.
I
and it
had
looks
heard about that. Yeah.
Interesting.
Their animation for game stuff, man. It's something. I mean, the fact that they just announced the Gears of War thing too. I'm really looking forward to seeing what else they do.
Can't wait to see more from Castlevania. That was
Yes.
such a good series.
Still got to go back and watch that on the list.
Oh please, get that. You could probably finish all of
You
that
can watch
on the
it
flight over.
on the flight over. Oh yeah.
I'm
And we
still
will
watching
quiz you.
Rings of Power right now. It's taken me so long to get through it. I just have to do it in short bursts because I fall asleep. So
I haven't watched the finale,
Whoa.
kidding. Oh
You're
my
the Lord
God,
of the
if
Rings.
Proto-
but I
you are the
know
Lord.
what happens. I know what
Wow.
happens. I had it spoiled for me, so I was like, "Ugh, I guess I'll."
That is the worst possible indictment that I could have heard about that show. When Lucy is not watching the finale, that's it. Then it's done. It's cooked, man. Just wrap it up, Jeff. That's it.
Oh, I thought you meant Keely and not Bezos.
Bezos. No.
I was like, what's Jeff got to do?
J-E-double-F. That this time around, I made that little that switch. But yeah.
All right. Well, like we said, we will be at the Game Awards. We'll be at TGA's. Follow us on Instagram, by the way, and Twitter, because we'll post pictures and stuff.
And if you see us at the Game Awards,
hi.
come tell us how much you love FPS, and we will give you a hug.
even if it's a
or
lie.
tell us how much you hate it. Either one's fine.
Feedback in person is always so much more effective than feedback in. I appreciate feedback in comments, but I always make sure if I've ever met anyone and asked them for feedback, it goes a long way. So give your local content creator real feedback.
Yeah.
Your local content creator.
Yeah, like if you see one
I
at the
love
gas
that
station.
phrase.
The amount of real feedback I get in the comment section, I don't know if I want that real feedback in person. Like, I don't know, man. It's just, I feel like I get enough feedback.
People are nicer in person. I always
That's true.
feel.
That is 100%
They
true.
wouldn't say that stuff to your face. All right. I don't really have much to add to this next topic because I haven't played it and I have no interest in.
Are we doing this?
We're doing this as a whole
Literally,
topic, huh?
literally, Ralph put together the run of show,
Yeah, a
block
whole
2,
segment.
Sonic,
Okay.
and then let's do this. That's all he wrote. So,
That's right.
All right. Well,
This is the Sonic block. We're going to talk about Sonic, okay? We're going to try and let it not get out of control because that's what's happened this last week. It's been a wild ride, obviously. To catch anyone up on Sonic, the Sonic Frontiers dropped last week. In the review period, I think most people were like, this is pretty cool. It's got a lot of problems, but most people are like, this is a pretty fun game. I personally was like, this is okay, but I'm not a fan of this. I think it has quite a few problems and I don't recommend it. I think I was only one of very few like kind of negative reviews. I think most reviews kind of tended more towards the positive side. I got a lot of shit on Twitter for that, man. Ooh, the Sonic fanboys were not happy with me. That was a big thing. And I was just copping it left, right, and center. But then luckily, Donkey stepped up to the plate, man. He's like, pour skill up. He is copping too much heat. I'm going to take some heat off him.
take it off him.
That's right. And so then Donkey did his thing and put out his video and obviously ended it with there was a segment at the back end of the Donkey video. Because basically he shat on the game. And there was a segment at the back end showing the user score for Sonic, which is like 8 point something or other on Metacritic, comparing that to stuff like Hades or Elden Ring and Breath of the Wild. And it's kind of like the same. The Sonic score is the same or higher. The point he was trying to make was that Sonic fans have low standards and that they like this thing when really it's shit. That obviously became the whole thing, this whole thing, and like Donkey was trending, and it just became a very toxic conversation, obviously. And by the way, we'll get into the Donkey thing, I think, because I just think it's interesting. But I think Donkey is well in his rights to just throw a thing up there, okay? Like, I don't think it necessitates that level of toxicity coming back. He's semi-satirist, semi-comedian. He can do whatever he likes.
Yeah.
But obviously, a lot of people don't agree. And that's their right to be able to say that as well. So, Sonic, man, what a clusterfuck, hey?
How do
I have no
Look,
strong
this is-
opinion
thi-
one way
Okay,
or the
Gerard.
other. I
Look,
don't care.
Gerard.
Here's the problem about us talking about Sonic Internet. Out of the four of us, I fucking loved this game a lot. Okay,
Good.
I loved this game to pieces. I for the first time in my entire gaming career, I was on YouTube trending because my video was called "I really loved Sonic Frontiers."
Yeah.
It was a huge win for me, and a lot of the Sonic community turned to me as a beacon of hope for them, and I'm appreciative of them because they didn't come after me for once. And more importantly, like, I identified with everything they loved about this game through and through as a Sonic fan, as a 3D platformer enthusiast, and I thought I was going to be the only one that really had this kind of love for the game, and I was not. And that felt pretty good. But I feel like I just saw in your comments, Ralph, over the last couple of weeks, like, can't wait for Gerard and Ralph to talk about Sonic because we are so on the opposite ends of this conversation. But I don't know what people expect. Like, I don't know.
I don't think we are at that opposite end of the spectrum, though. And I think that's what's interesting about Sonic, because, like, I don't think your video wasn't like, actually, Sonic is perfect. This is the greatest game ever made.
Right.
It has no problems. You were just like, hey, here's some stuff, but I really love this and I really love that. And I get that. And I think as well, what were the things that really resonated for you then? What were the things you shouted out in that video?
Oh man, one of the biggest things was the respect that the narrative of the Sonic lore had received, because this was written by Ian Flynn, who has been writing the IDW comics for years. There's tons of references that aren't just references. Everything had weight to Sonic lore. If you were a fan that's been playing since the Genesis era, or recently played Sonic Forces, or even Sonic Mania, this game has something in it for you, and it constantly reminds you throughout the lore, hey, remember that time on Angel Island when this happened? And hey, why is it this way? This reminds me of when this big space monster happened. Like it rewards the player for, hey, you've played this game, you've played all the games. Because you've played it, the lore is respectful. Also, Eggman's a father. Like, Eggman is a father, and you see his evolution of being like well, I just want to get the hell out of the cyber zone to, I really miss my daughter. Like,
Aww.
that's the arc of Eggman in this game, is that, like, which is weird because it should be, I'll get you next time, Sonic and Knuckles and Tails, and instead it's like,
should be that.
Instead it's just, wow.
He's having his Kratos moment.
I grew to love this not real software embodied girl to be my daughter, and I am growing as a person. And it's like, no one asked for that, but that's really fucking cool that, like, you took a character that's usually evil and is now having its own little arc that has nothing to do with Sonic. Meanwhile, Sonic's just trying to be Sonic and save the day.
I just really enjoyed seeing them figure things out from a gameplay perspective. Even if it didn't all work, I think the fact that, like, they kind of figured out what Sonic can do in an open world and how he would do it, and gave him a combat system. Like, I liked seeing that stuff.
Yeah.
I definitely, I that was my biggest takeaway from it. I'm like, this is a version of Sonic that I think can definitely work in the future. You know, they arrived at a template that I was like, yeah, this is super cool. And I'm down for these open worlds. I'm down for the exploration side of it. But yeah, I really just viewed it as kind of a proof of concept, like a prototype, because ultimately, like, as an example with the open worlds, there was no real difference between those worlds in terms of, like, how they manifestly played. You know, like, they had a different color. You know, there was sand instead of grass, but the sand didn't function any differently to the grass. You know, there were no elements to that environment that felt and played differently based upon the fact that I was in them. And so they just felt like color swaps to me. And the same sort of thing goes for a lot of the stuff, like the stuff that's floating in the sky, all those floating rails. I'm like, they're all the same in each environment versus having something distinct about them that exists in that one space versus others. Yeah. So I really struggled. I just got really bored of the game because I was like, well, I've already seen this. I've already done all this before. And now I'm just doing more of it. And even the combat side of it, I was like, well, yeah, I can do some combos where I have to hold a different button. But most of the time, if you just press square or hold square, it's fine. It does the job. And I think that the way that enemies were designed didn't really bring out the best of that combat. It was just kind of, you could do it if you wanted to, but it was just like, it was quite optional, you know? So
that was my big issue. Like, was that with every good, there was kind of a bad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but I'm really glad that Sonic people are enjoying it. Like, that's cool. And I'm glad to see that, you know, they had that response to it. And yeah,
Gerard, question for you, man.
Yeah.
As the Sonic person. So Ralph and I are both very much like, oh, good proof of concept. Can't wait to see what else they do with it. Team Sonic or Sonic Team, which is it?
Sonic
Team
Team.
Sonic Team. They did say a couple years ago that the Sonic 2022 game would be kind of a blueprint going forward. That being said, like, they've been a little inconsistent. Every game kind of jumps around and it's different. Do you think they'll actually stick to this formula and improve upon it for the next game? Do you really see that or feel that?
If they do, they need to really stick to the idea that each biome feels like its own atmosphere, because the first two biomes, distinct, feel fun, feel different, feel unique. The third one is like, yeah, it's like ashy and snowy, but starts to feel a little more on the repetitive side. The fourth and fifth biome are the exact same looking as the first biome. And within that, you have the rails, like Ralph was talking about, right? The rails and how you do puzzles and how you figure things out. If they go in on making these areas a lot more distinct, a lot more robust, and flesh it out to feel like it's its own environment, yeah, I think there's a potential to do super well here. You know, there's a lot to do in all these maps, and you can get there very fast if you're leveled up all the way, but there's not really the need to, like, you know, you don't need to collect all of the little heart fragments for Rose or Sage or whoever, because the map has dozens of them, but you can also earn them by not playing the game. You can kill enemies, they could drop it. Like, the game just has to narrow its focus a little further, focus in on what makes it unique, which is the biomes and the moves and the atmosphere, and then also fix the Cyber Realm stuff, because the Cyber Realm stuff I think was to me was the least fun part about Sonic Frontiers. It literally just did. It's the third time in a row in which Sonic Team took Green Hill Zone and Chemical Plant Zone and Sky Sanctuary and just chopped it 27 different times and said these are levels. Like, that's what Sonic Forces was. There's so many levels in Sonic Forces that was just 2D, 3D Green Hill Zone, 2D, 3D Chemical Plant Zone. But they could have gone so many. They could have been like, hey, we're taking a level from Sonic Mania. We're taking a level from Sonic 3 and Knuckles that no one's played in years. They have so much material that if you're going to dig into that nostalgia well, dig deeper. Don't just take the first two things off the top like you've been doing for the last decade. And if they can figure that part out, Jake, I absolutely think there's a future here for Sonic fans, because then you can create different universes and create coherent ones that are respectful to Sonic's lore instead of just same nostalgic stuff every time. Mario 1-1. Keep putting Mario 1-1 again and again and again and again and again. It'll just work. It just works.
I think there's so much potential for another one, even just in terms of, for me, it was just like, I wish it almost had a little bit more care and time to it, because it just felt a little busted around, around things. So I'm like, man, if this really was given even more love, it could be something else, because just how they crack the code on little open world activities, how some things you would do only take 5 seconds. Because Sonic's fast. It was fun for pick up and play. Like, I like that. So like, there's so much there.
Well, I feel like that's a nice spot to end it on. A little helpful one. But Gerard, you have a video about it. Ralph, you got a video about it. So please,
Jake does too as well.
And Jake, you got one too?
Yeah, I didn't do the before you buy. That was another team member. So I just did a little thing on my video where I was talking about the vibes.
Well, that's the thing. All the boys have a video. And I think but I think that was actually a very nice chat. Like, as someone who has no stakes in Sonic, it was really nice to hear you all talk about it from like such different viewpoints.
We need more time. We needed a part 2.
Yeah, and that's why I'm moving us along.
Well, I feel like just if you're at home listening to this, if you're like on a scale of like extreme enthusiast to like someone who enjoyed it to like someone who didn't like it, you have 3 distinct, unique opinions that you can choose to watch.
Yeah. All right, let's move along then. So, as we mentioned up top, we are joined this week in our little interview section by Josh Sawyer. So, he's the director of Pentiment, which we will be talking about more after this segment, because a bunch of us are playing it right now and really enjoying it. We chatted with him about like just how this game got made, because on paper, it's a bit of a weird one, but it seems to have really paid off. So, here is our interview with Josh. All right, everyone, as promised, we are now joined by Josh Sawyer, director of Pentiment. Josh, thank you so much for joining us. It is the day after launch. So how are you feeling? Does this part of the process get any easier?
Well, yeah, it does get easier. I mean, the game's out. I mean, if it's hard or something went really wrong.
Good point. I meant in terms of like, the kind of launch week anxiety, that kind of stuff. Does that part get any easier over the years?
Over time. Yeah, I think so, because I think you gain, or at least I've gained, a better perspective on what the likely reception is going to be, and also being a little more accepting of where things land. I think it would be an exaggeration to pretend like it doesn't matter, but you learn to contextualize it a lot more and not take it so personally. I think when you first start out, especially if you're extremely passionate about games and that becomes your entire life is just working on games, then when a game comes out, how it's received can be like a extreme emotional spike. And not to make it seem like it's no big deal now, but it is different after doing it for 20 years. So
but also, could I jump in there and ask, could you just briefly outline the games that you have worked on / directed? Because not everyone's going to be familiar with your CV, and it's a pretty crazy ass CV. So
I started in the industry actually in 1999. I was working at Black Isle Studios. I worked on Icewind Dale and the sequel, Icewind Dale 2. Then I briefly went to Midway and then went to Obsidian. And at Obsidian, I worked on Neverwinter Nights 2 And then after that, I directed Fallout New Vegas, and more recently, Pillars of Eternity 1 and 2, and then Pentiment.
So just a few things that you might have heard of.
Just a few small RPGs, a few small fan bases here and there. So yeah.
So when, I mean, like, let's talk about Pentiment itself. I mean, how long have you been kind of conceptualizing and thinking about even making this one?
Well, it goes back all like 30 years, honestly, when I played a game in 1992 called Darklands, and it was a historical role-playing game. It was very strange. I think even now you'd consider it strange. Back then it was very, very weird. It was historical. It didn't have classes or alignment or any of the things you associate with Dungeons and Dragons. And even though there were fantastic elements to it, it was very clearly a historical game, and it borrowed very heavily from established history. And it and several other things got me interested in history academically. I wound up getting a bachelor's degree in history, focusing on the early modern Holy Roman Empire, study of witch hunts and magic in the early modern world. And that stuck with me. After I graduated, I went straight into the games industry, and I knew I wanted to work on a Dungeons and Dragons game, which was the first game I worked on. I really wanted to work on Fallout, and that took a really weird kind of route over the years. And then eventually I got to work on Fallout New Vegas. And then I really did want to work on a historical game, and I brought it up way back then at Black Isle. My boss now is the person who was my boss then, Fergus Urquhart, and it was a hard sell. He was not very convinced on the idea of making a historical game, especially a hardcore historical role-playing game. And it wasn't until after I worked on Pillars of Eternity 2 Deadfire, which was, it shipped in around the middle of 2018. And I started thinking about the idea of a narrative adventure game in the vein of something like Night in the Woods or Oxenfree, where it was really heavy on character development and storytelling, light on mechanics, where the writing and the character interactions were really focused with a really distinctive art style. And that was like a vague idea. You know, I had certain ideas like about script and writing things in one stroke at a time and doing a lot of things with the mechanics of writing and the aesthetics of it. But it was really loose until Microsoft acquired Obsidian. Microsoft, even at that time, had a really big push on Game Pass. And I thought that a title like this could be a really great fit for Game Pass. And that's when I pushed for it, and that's how it got going.
What parts started to fall into place first? You mentioned like quite a lot of things that have become, you know, a huge part of Pentiment, but what were the initial building blocks that you kind of worked on and built on?
So I was trying to reconcile a few things in my head because I love many aspects of medieval history, especially things like illuminated manuscripts, the monastic houses that were very powerful for a long time. But I also love the emergence of the modern era, so things like the rise of print and the peasant war that emerged in the Holy Roman Empire in the early 16th century. And so I tried to find a way to kind of reconcile those things. And then really that became the focus, was showing a world in transition and struggling to move out of an old-fashioned way of living into the modern era. And that became kind of the narrative focus and the artistic focus. And then working with Hannah Kennedy, who's my art director, she's incredible. And I came to her with this idea. I said, I want you to try to create an art style that is not replicating, but is kind of synthesizing a blend between this late medieval illuminated manuscript style and the early period of print in Europe. And what you see in the game is very, I mean, everyone says like, oh, it looks just like this art. It doesn't just look like that art, but it evokes all the important elements of that art, because Hannah is very analytical. When she looks at an art style, she's very adept at breaking down, why does this art style look the way it does? What is distinctive about it? What is distinctive about how color is used, how transparency, opacity are used, line weight, what colors are used or avoided, how are things layered or not layered, how is texture used? She has an incredible mind and eye for that stuff, and she can break it down and then reconstruct it in a way that feels very authentic while still being her own creation. And that's really how, that was the foundation. And we started looking at, because Name of the Rose was such a foundational piece of literature for what this game became, we watched the film, the 1986 film version of it. Hannah and I had both read it. And then Hannah started doing some like mock-ups of scenes of saying, how would we render characters from this story in this setting knowing that we were going to do a lot of similar things in terms of characters who are many monks and nuns in these sort of environments. And then based off those experiments, then we started getting more into the pre-production of the game. So that was really the creative genesis that got things rolling.
And when it comes to, one of the things that struck me as I'm playing is that like how much I'm learning. Obviously, you have a huge passion for history. What's important to you to get across? Is it that you are imparting knowledge? Is it about being accurate? Is it about sharing knowledge in a way that's easy to understand for a bunch of people who might not necessarily learn about it?
I think that I had an idea in my head that obviously I like the idea of people becoming interested in learning through playing things that I work on, whether that's New Vegas or even Pillars or a game like this, of course, where history is really a focus. But I thought it was first and foremost important to convey my love of this and the love of the people working on the team of it. There's actually a character in the game at one point who does say very outright, like, the only reason to do anything is for love. And so obviously there's a secondary element, which is that in the imparting of the love and the passion of this thing, I want people to also feel that in themselves and then want to learn more about this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And because the relationships are really central to the story, it's kind of like history is this osmotic thing that's being absorbed as you're going through. And I don't really feel like you have to know a ton about history to become involved in the story of these characters, because a lot of what they're talking about is very immediate to their lives. It's not about far off. I mean, there are like dukes and things mentioned, but it's like about things that are happening right here at this time. So yeah, it was very important for me to convey the deep love that I have for this and the deep love that the team has for many aspects of these things, and in a very genuine way without trying to hide it or win people over through other means. It's like, if you love this or if you feel open to loving this, then see how much we love it and then come along with us. And that was really the focus that I took. But obviously, education and imparting things are also important to me. And they're also important within the story. There is a very important meta layer there where the characters within the setting, from Andreas and Piero and Klaus and his family and other people, are continually involved in the transmission of knowledge and passion and stories within their community. So that is also very important for the relationship between me and our team creating something and giving it to people.
Because how many were on the team by the end?
13 at the end. So there were 2 at the beginning, just me and Hannah, and then we had 5 through pre-production, and then for about the last 9 months to 12 months, it was 13.
Wow.
Seems like a really small number, right?
It's pretty small.
Yeah,
I mean, there are smaller teams, certainly, but
Crazy.
13 was kind of necessary for, especially the number. We have a lot of characters to animate. We have a lot of custom animations. I think the most fantastic thing is that we did have someone, Emily Cheeseman, who is a fantastic artist, and she did a little bit of supplemental scene work, but 98-ish% ballpark of the art in the game was created by 2 artists. It was created by Hannah Kennedy and Sujin Peck,
Crazy.
and they're both like phenomenal, very creative, and yeah, just it's amazing what they did.
The book system is like one of my favorite elements of the game, to be able to like back out and essentially get caught up on some info and stuff. Was that part of the early design process? Was that hard to implement? Because it seems so daunting just as like a newbie looking at all that text, all that information that's that easily accessible, you know?
Yes, it was. It was something I conceived of early on, and it took a lot of work. Not so much the 2D, 3D transition, although that was some work, but all the nuances were very complicated. I'm not going to get up and go get it, but I actually took a physical book and mocked up how the journal would work as a physical object, folding and unfolding, because the animation is actually quite complicated. The way that the table of contents flip out and each section is kind of folded into itself. And I didn't want to, I was very clear. I said, I don't want to fake or abstract anything. I want to actually simulate as much as we possibly can so that it feels very physical and very real. So much of the focus of the game is on the physical act of writing within a physical medium with physical inks and print and things like that. that I really wanted to do as much as we could to convey that very genuinely and accurately. And the mechanisms by which the journal especially work are very complicated. The margins are a little complicated and a lot of work went into those, but it's really how the journal itself works, the different sections, the annotations, how things fill in. That was a lot of work.
Actually, it's
worth
funny
it.
you mentioned that because
Yeah, I love that.
I love it, but also my favorite thing is one of my favorite things is like the sound work. When you hear the writing, and if someone's angry or they're agitated, it's like a real scratch in it, which I really enjoy.
Thank
And
you.
there's loads of those little like touches, and one of the things I really enjoy as well is like the meals, because I assume they would also be a huge part of someone's day. You're meeting someone, and so where did that come up to become such a core part of the game as well?
Yeah, it's there are a couple of things that led to us including meals. The first is that when we prototyped the game and it was a series of events that you did, like investigations, it wasn't that it felt bad, but it kind of felt like you were just moving relentlessly from one thing to the next, and the pace of life wasn't there. And I knew I wanted to, initially I had some ideas of something even more simulative, because especially when you're working within the context of an abbey, abbeys are extremely regulated in how people live. They have something called the divine office. You see it in the game, how the hours are represented. Our Benedictine Abbey is a little lax in a lot of ways, but that's kind of part of the point. But anyway, I thought it would be better to show the pace of life and structure it a little more. And then also, because so much of the concerns of the people in the town have to do with material reality, life and death and starvation and things like that, actually seeing what they eat and eating with them and contrasting it with what other people in the world are eating became a not so subtle, but definitely an understated aspect of how people live. Because, for example, in the first act, if you eat with the Gertners, which is the farmer family that you live with, and then you eat with Lady Solomea, who is literally a noblewoman, and she has, the Gertners have like wooden bowls and some bread and some soup and maybe some cheese, I think, in Act 1. And then you eat with Lady Solomea, and she literally has wine. She has oranges. She has candied oranges with rose petals, and like wine in glasses, like glass glasses, which I think she's the only person in Act 1 that actually has glassware. And it's striking. And it's like, oh my God, like he's extremely wealthy. And, as the acts go on and those pressures rise and the division becomes more obvious, the strata of society becomes more obvious. But it's also obviously it's a chance to focus on side conversations, just forcing the player to interact with people that are not necessarily directly connected to the murders. Going and having a meal with Franz Bauer, who is just this awful, awful man,
I made that mistake.
terrorizing his family and being like, "Oh God."
So awkward. Just sitting there like, okay.
Yeah, it's very, very awkward. But it kind of forces you to make because you can only have a meal with one family each act basically, and it just kind of forces you to get these different perspectives, and that was kind of the thinking behind it.
Yeah.
So this actually makes me want to ask you a question, Josh, and please forgive me if this is too basic, but or you've heard it before. You've been a part of so many projects. Did you take any influences from your previous projects going into this? And if so, how did it affect your guys' development process?
Yeah, like every project I've ever worked on. No, I mean, like I really do feel like every time I make something and ship something, I'm like, this is the way we're going to do it. This is going to be the thing. And then we ship it and it's like, okay, that was 50% right and 50% don't ever do that. Like the way that dialogue checks are handled in Fallout New Vegas, where Fallout 3 had percentage based and it was randomized and people would save scum. So we made it a threshold check, meaning if you have if you have the amount, you will make the check, but then it's always good. So people always pick it. And it kind of is like, well, I don't really have a choice in dialogue then. So then in Pentiment, you don't have ranks of things. You just have backgrounds that unlock options, but the options sometimes are not good. They're things you shouldn't take. Someone was commenting that they took law, and every time they bring up law, people say "shut the fuck up," and that happens with logic a lot. It happens with law a lot, where you're like, well, it really is like, there's a lot of cases where you say, well, technically, and someone's like, shut the fuck up. Like, I don't care. This is not, I didn't ask you about that. Like, that's not the issue.
It's
Which
just
is
like
not to,
Twitter. That's
yeah,
it.
which is not to say that it's not useful, but the goal there was to make players think a little bit more about like, oh, just because I can say something doesn't mean it's a good thing to say. And maybe it's just an entertaining option where you're like, that's funny, but I'm not going to pick it. There's an option where you can confront someone who's being rude to a friend of yours, and you can headbutt them, and it's not real. It's very satisfying in a certain way, but it is really not a good idea. There's also another character later on where they're just much better at fighting than you are, and if you have Rapscallion, you can be like, I'm going to sucker punch this guy, and he will like lay you out. And it's like, yeah, you're an artist. Like, what are you thinking? and so we try to present these things as options that are entertaining, but sometimes they produce good results and sometimes not good results. And a lot of that was looking at New Vegas and saying, yeah, just because you've invested in something and you unlock something, if it removes the player sense of agency and consideration over what they're doing, then that's not really what we're trying to do. We want the player to really think. And sometimes the thing is, like, I've seen people that pick these, especially the Rapscallion options where you're doing violent things, and they know, they're like, this is not going to be good, but I want to see it. And it's about getting the feedback and knowing I chose that. I knew it was not going to go well, but I wanted to do it anyway. And that's a better feeling, I think, than just saying, when you see an unlock, you should always pick it. But that's just one example. There are tons of other ones. I reflect back on my career all the time and try to learn from mistakes that I've made. So
I definitely struggled back and forth between trying to be like, so I had the party goer option.
The hedonist, yeah.
Yes, and the amount of times I had the option to just be like, oh yeah, I remember one time, but then choosing not to say that, and then that kind of carrying over to so many other parts of the game with like the investigation and stuff. There's a lot of power in stuff you don't say. So I was kind of like this in between of like party guy, but also like pensive observational person. So Andreas is definitely like a malleable character from the amount of choices, but even still, was there some inspiration behind him, some influence to who he is?
Yeah, I would say the primary influence on who he is at a high level is Albrecht Dürer, who was a contemporary artist at this time. He was also from Nuremberg. He looks like Andreas in a lot of ways. There are many parallels between his life and Andreas's. And he's not a replica of him, but he was kind of this template and foundation. He's arguably the most famous artist of the Northern Renaissance. He was the first artist to do mass-produced print work, and he became incredibly famous because of it and wealthy because of it. He was like, woodcuts? Yeah, let's do this. I can make, I can make one painting that takes me, like a year, and then sell it to a noblewoman. Actually, I'll just tell a little interesting to me side story, which is early in the game, you talk to the Baron in the churchyard by Father Thomas, and he talks about seeing the emperor in Innsbruck sitting for a portrait. And if you dig in, it's Albrecht Dürer, and it's that really happened there, where he came there and he sat briefly, did a sketch, and then he went away. And Albrecht Dürer created this beautiful, look it up, the Dürer's portrait of Maximilian I. And by the time he finished it, Maximilian died, and Charles V became the new Holy Roman Emperor. But Albrecht Dürer was like, hey, anyone want to pay me for this? Because I put a lot of effort into it. And so he had to go and try to convince Maximilian's daughter to buy it. And she's like, I'm good. But Dürer, he made so much money off of his prints, and that's primarily how people know his work now. Those beautiful black and white prints of like the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse or Melancholia, many of which are referenced in the game. And he was able to print those and distribute them and sell them all over Europe. So he was a huge inspiration. Also his travel diaries and hearing about where he went and how his letters that he wrote to his wife, he had a really awful relationship with his wife. He was constantly writing to his friends and being like, I hate my wife. I can't, like, I don't want to go back to Nuremberg, and all this stuff. So Dürer was a big inspiration, but also fictionally, looking at William of Baskerville from Name of the Rose. It's not quite comparable, but he's put in a similar position where he's an unlikely detective who has to solve a murder. And then the last inspiration I would say would be Andrei Rublev from the Tarkovsky film Andrei Rublev, which is loosely based on a real historical figure. But the film Andrei Rublev, which is one of my favorites, is it's about this 15th century Russian icon painter who you see him go from a young man to an old man and go through this really incredible life and struggles as an artist and as a person and as a religious man. And it's a really moving and beautiful film. And that idea of seeing an artist go through life and intersecting with people around him over a long period of time was really appealing to me. So kind of mash those dudes together, and then that's kind of the character we wound up with.
And it's still malleable enough that you can. I feel like I've definitely left my own imprint on Andreas as I'm playing. So
yeah,
maybe it's because we have the same hair, at least in Act 1. A sad realization I had the other day. I was going to ask because I don't feel like I see a lot of depiction of religion in games, and obviously the brothers and the abbot and the nuns play such a huge part, and like you said, they kind of dictate the times of the day in the game. What was your approach to including religion?
Yeah, I mean, I had one other opportunity to really explore religion, like a real world religion, in the Fallout New Vegas expansion, Honest Hearts, which I think has a lot of flaws looking back on it that I regret. But I think that we did do a pretty good job about how we represented religion in a way that feels very sincere, and without sugarcoating it, and but also without like being unreasonably critical. And I think that requires a very sober kind of approach to it. I think that because I studied religion, and the history of religion and the history of Europe are very, deeply intertwined. And so I wanted to portray religion as it affected and existed in the lives of these people. And because we have a very large cast of characters, you get a very large range of views on faith. And you have people who are secular, living in the town, who are very irreverent and very blasphemous, or just horrible people. I mean, there are some really nasty people living in Tassing. And then you have people that are extremely devout, and they're very courageous and humble and faithful, and they always want to do the right thing. And then at the Abbey, similarly, you have people who are very, they take their vows extremely seriously. They're not only very religious, but they have a very deep intellectual faith and intellectual life to their pursuit of their vocation in this community. And they can debate about it, and they can argue with you about it and defend everything that they believe in. And then you have people that are extremely resentful that they've been put essentially by their families into this environment, and they don't want to be there, and they fool around or fight against it, or they struggle with their humanity in this space where they want to serve God, but they also have very human urges. And I hope that we were able to reflect this fairly. I've seen some people criticize it. I don't really agree with the criticism because I just think people are people. And that's ultimately a big thing about Pentiment, is that I want to convey, is that their material reality is very different from ours. I mean, their 16th century is very far away from us in many ways, but the people of this time are not far away from us in many ways. They're really just like us. They just live in a different place in a different time.
I mean, it's funny. We have a Discord where we chat about things that we're playing, and I think, do we all realize that we grew up Catholic? So,
Catholic.
So we all kind of had this, an intense, I don't know, interest, but it kind of leaves a mark on your life. And so I was very interested with the depiction of religion, because it's a complicated thing that not everyone is going to see the same.
I've only played the opening section of the game. Later, as you described it, are there any characters in the game that sort of cynically use the cloth to shroud their more malicious nature, and you know what I mean? Like any of that sort of stuff going on?
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know if I can say without being, in Act 2, Does anyone know what I'm talking? If in Act Two, there's a character that very, very cynically uses. Basically, this character knows the rules of Catholicism very
Sure.
well, and they very knowingly use it to entrap another religious character into like protecting them. It's a super cynical thing to do. It's really
Right.
awful in a
Right.
way. Um, there's that, and then there are characters who I think that there is, for example, there are a number of characters who are religious and some of them have very deep faith, but they're also very obviously involved in relationships with other people that they're not really supposed to have. And they kind of just go along with it. And if you try to bring it up to other people, very often those other people, especially in the community, say like, shut up. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
what's going on. They're like, no, I don't. Shut up. Like, no one wants to talk about this. Like, we really genuinely do not want to talk about it. And that was something that, I talked a lot with one of our historical consultants, Ed Kern, and it was something that I kind of knew, but we got into the weeds on it where communities knew that sex was, I mean, this still happens in religious communities. They knew that sex was happening. Sometimes it was same sex, sometimes it was not same sex. And there's a lot of not acknowledging it and like the idea is just do your best to not make other people aware of it. And we're going to kind of just do this a lot
Sure.
and just nobody talk about it. Nobody bring it up. This is the way that life is. And we have to live with each other. And that actually happens within the secular community as well. There is this idea that's not true, which is that like, homosexuality either didn't exist or when it was detected by anyone instantaneously was immediately punished with violence. It wasn't. Much like for most of the 20th century, there was a lot of repression and kind of denial and like we're just not like we know what's going on, we're not talking about it, just let it go. And as long as it doesn't become in someone's face and no one makes an issue of it, we're just not going to deal with it because these are your neighbors and these are the people that you live with and care about. And you don't want bad things to happen to them, even if you have some sort of problem at some level with how they live their life. You're just like, look, just let it go. So there was a lot of that historically, and we tried to represent that in the game.
You cover so much, like the peasant revolt, art, religion. Was there a pillar or a concept in this time period that you wanted to cover that had to fall onto the cutting room floor?
Oh, geez. We don't get really in depth with occult stuff because it is really esoteric. I mean, it's literally esoteric and it's, figuratively esoteric, but it's a thing that I studied a bunch historically within college, how learned magic intersects with life and all this stuff. And it's really weird and it's very fascinating. But it was one of those things that I had to keep superficial because, man, I mean, it's like once you can't put a toe into it, you got to like jump in. So it's kind of like you can superficially see, books get mentioned at one point. You can see the Munich Necromancer's Manual, which was a real book. And so it's there superficially, and I would love to get like super in depth on it. But man, that could be a whole game is just dealing with occult stuff because it's so crazy. But I feel like I really did. Like there was I had this line in my mind from there's a film which is based on a book which is based on a painting. The painting is Peter Bruegel the Elder's The Procession to Calvary or The Way to Calvary. And it's a Mannerist painting. It's huge and it's beautiful. And it shows a huge amount of people in a valley with Christ crucified kind of almost receding into the background. And it's this, there's like over 100 characters in the scene. And then in the background, there's this tall pillar of rock and a windmill on the top of it that is overlooking everything. And there was a big book written about the painting called The Mill and the Cross. And then there's a Polish movie made about it, talking about the creation of it and life in the Netherlands at the time it was created. And one of the things that Bruegel said while he was creating the painting in the film is, my painting needs to be big enough to hold everything, everyone. And it was this idea of, in a mannerist paintings very often showed many characters without really drawing focus or attention to like a central character. It was this like just huge array. And so I had from the beginning, I was like, I want to show everyone. Like I want to show peasants and craftspeople and nuns and anchoresses and printers and millers and noble people and executioners and tinkers and Romani and Jews. Like I want to show everyone. And so the scope from the beginning was, I want this to be huge and I want to explore as much as we can with these characters, including, you know, not that this is really a spoiler, but like Václav, who is the Romani tinker, if you talk to him, he is really heretical. He's a Gnostic. And the more you talk to him, the more like really out there you see his ideas are. And I didn't know where to put those. Like I wanted to explore that because the idea of these oddball heretics, they were real. Like they were around, they had very strange beliefs, and usually they shut up because they would get in big trouble for talking about it. But, you know, one of my reading recommendations was The Cheese and the Worms, which is about a miller who could not shut up about his very weird religious beliefs. So I was like, who would do this? And I'm like, well, Václav, because he travels around. So if the heat ever gets on him, he's like, I gotta go. And he returns later and he has crazier beliefs and he's very sincere about them. They're very well thought out from his perspective, but they're just odd. And so I do feel like outside of the esotericism of occult things, I did get to explore pretty much everything I wanted to explore in terms of the different facets of society and sexuality and gender and commerce and class and all that stuff.
Does that mean that you would like to pursue the occult stuff in a sequel, or that there is not enough on the table for a sequel and this is a one
DLC, spooky Halloween DLC?
Yeah, I would say like everything, you know, like from the beginning, and thankfully this wasn't a hard sell. You know, they were like, "What do you think for post-launch content?" I'm like, "Sleeping." What do you like? Like this is it, man. Like there's not, which isn't to say I can't conceive of stuff beyond this. But this is a story about these characters in this thing, and I feel like it ends very clearly and definitively, and there's not a whole lot of like, oh yeah, what about, you know,
sure,
Andreas Mahler will return, and like, you know, come on, man. So games of this type, sure, or like other games in this time period, that'd be fantastic. So yeah, there's so much more to talk about, but I really feel there was very little where I was like, oh man, I really just didn't get to deal with this very important facet of life in this time.
Right.
Looking back over your career, you've worked on so many of these like kind of huge sprawling games, and you've taken on the role of like narrative and narrative director in a lot of those. Where do you keep getting the ideas from? Does it come from the world, or is it just things you've read? How do you keep making these huge games, all these characters?
It's funny you say that because for a very long time in my career, everyone thought of me as just assistant designer, because I did all the mechanical design for so long, and we have so many writers here, and other writers were just more prominent than me, and people would either literally tell me I'm not really a writer, or kind of suggest that, even though I have done writing on every single project. So it was really only in the past few games where it's become the focus of what I do. And on Pentiment, because the mechanics are so light, obviously that was really the focus of what I was doing. And where it comes from is usually outside of the medium itself. Like I don't usually take stuff from games and then like try to plant them like narratively within games. Usually it's art, or it's film, or it's some hobby that I have that I'm into. And I think that's a nice way to keep things fresh. I generally think that, and I don't fault anyone for taking inspiration from other games. We should take inspiration from other games, but I feel like if that is the only kind of well you're dipping into, and then I just don't think it's going to keep things very fresh. So I try to, in my life, I kind of go through these weird cycles with hobbies and interests. And art has been a lifelong interest of mine because my father's a sculptor. I wanted to be an illustrator for a long time. And history and music kind of floated through there. I wandered through, in many ways, I went to university and I didn't drop out, but maybe I should have. I got a degree in history, but I started as a music major, vocal performance major, and it was a wandering path. So, anyway, I think ideas come from lots of different places, and I just kind of keep trying new things and trying to bring new things into the games that I'm working on, because I think that that's the only way that I really get passionate about things, is to try new stuff.
But also imparting knowledge, obviously you stream, YouTube channel. Is that also going to continue to be an important part of what you do?
Yeah, I think so. It's interesting because I feel like Twitch is a weird place to stream, because there are just weird relationships there, and I have no interest in I don't want subscribers. I don't want I want to go there and talk with people, and then sometimes people come on there and they have like a very strange expectation of how I should be interacting with them, and I'm like, no, fuck off. I don't care. Leave. I don't what. It's a very strange space. So I like talking with people. I like on Twitter, on Tumblr, on YouTube, on Twitch. And I wanna do talks about Pentiment. I want other people on my team who have more of the deep, intimate knowledge of the specific implementations of things to be able to do their talks, because the actual making of the thing is in itself educational. There are a lot of things that we did on this project that are similar to other things that other Obsidian teams have done, but there's a ton of stuff that we did that we've never done before, and maybe no one has done before. So it's worth talking about how we approach rendering fonts and the journal and things like that. They're very technically complicated, but also had very clear and specific creative goals for what we were trying to accomplish. So yeah, I'm going to keep on chitting and chatting with people. I'm probably going to take a break for a little bit just because this is exhausting. But yeah.
Kojima's got a podcast now.
Oh, he does?
Yeah, Kojima has a podcast. You could have a podcast series.
Yeah.
Ralph listens. You still
Very
listen?
good. It's very weird. It's him and old-timey Japanese dudes just talking about their careers, and it's full of gold. I recommend it highly. It's
awesome.
Great.
Anything else from you boys, or should we wrap it up?
I have... Oh, sorry, Jake. You go.
No, please go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think this is a very difficult question. So whatever, and we're right near the end of the interview. But you have worked on some of the most iconic, memorable RPGs for a long time. Would you say there are some golden rules? Because you've spoken briefly about dialogue systems, and here's what it goes through my mind when I think about building those. But do you have a set of core golden rules that you think really make for a great RPG experience, knowing full well that the RPG genre runs from God of War through to Pillars of Eternity? Is there anything that you kind of cling to at the start of a process and said, this is how you have to, or this is the things we need to think about when we're designing a good RPG?
Yeah, that's rough, because again, I think that term means a lot of different things to different people.
Exactly,
I think for games that are made here, I think that focusing very heavily on not just choice and consequence, but engaging the player and really making them think about what they're doing is very important, and making the process of thinking in itself rewarding, even if it isn't fun. So on Pentiment, I've seen a lot of people talking about picking the murderer, which maybe in a high level sounds ooh, fun. And then they do it and they're like, this kind of sucks. I don't like
very
this.
stressful.
Rough.
It's very stressful, and that didn't work out the way I thought it would. Or I hated this. A lot of people have said, I hated this guy and I thought he was the most deserving, but then I saw how he died and I felt so bad for him. It's yeah, the guy got executed. It's not fun. But making people really mentally engage with that and also emotionally engage with that, because I think that the idea of choice and consequence very superficially is there are multiple things that you pick and then different things happen. It's fascinating. But you really have to make the player give a shit about that stuff. What am I choosing and what am I not choosing? And how long am I thinking about that? And what does that mean to me? And how does that reflect back on me as a person and the things that I value? I think especially in the first act of Pentiment, that decision about who you send to be responsible really makes you ask a lot of questions. I'm I don't know. I don't like this guy, but I don't necessarily think he did it. But I think this woman did it, but she's justified. Maybe I don't want her to suffer for this, or these people are going to be mad at me. But if I put this person up, then maybe no one will be mad at me because everyone hates this person. So I think it's important to think about giving the player choices, not for the sake of choice, but for the sake of engaging them and entertaining them and keeping them going. And I do think, again, that one of the things that I do like to say a lot is that a choice, every choice should have a point to it, but entertainment in itself is also a point. And so, like, headbutting Werner Stoltz is entertaining, even though it is not a good option. It is good that it is there. Or, you know, one of the throwaway lines when you're talking to Illuminata about the book, you can say, she'll be like, why do you even want this book? What are you going to do with it? And you can say, read it and become a French heretic. And it's just, it doesn't, she just says, shut up. Like, please be serious. But the value of it being there is to make the player laugh, to engage the player, to make the player think about what they're picking. And you can extend that across, you know, every option you have for, like, why pick this gun? Why pick this outfit? Why pick this hairstyle? Why pick being male or female? Why pick any of this stuff? Is you want the player to think about it and feel like their choice is important and valuable to them, which I know is a very abstract way to think about it. But a lot of times when I see a lot of effort being put into giving the player choices, and I'm like, this isn't fun, or it's not engaging. I don't care. Like, I'm stumbling through this. And then you're spending a lot of time and effort making things that people don't care about. And that is the worst feeling.
Sure. In that context, did you play Disco Elysium?
Yes, I did not finish Disco Elysium, but I played like half of it.
Yeah, right. Because I think it's the way you describe consequence and getting players invested in outcomes, and also having weird ass options just for the sake of entertainment value.
Headbutting a guy who's definitely going to be bigger than you.
Is going to floor you.
Yeah.
That's all up in that. So I wondered if you had any thoughts about, not just Disco Elysium, but do you think are there any RPGs in the last like 5 or 10 years that have really stood out for you and been like, man, they totally nailed that one. Holy shit, that was amazing.
That's it. I mean, like, that's really the biggest one, because I think that the focus was so much on the character that you're playing, and being comfortable with being. I guess that's the other thing, is that so much in RPGs is very often focused on a heroic fantasy. And in Disco Elysium, it is very much not, but it is in no way unsatisfying. Like, the character you're playing can be many different types of cops, and those cops are all very funny and endearing and also pathetic and occasionally impressive, but usually just kind of silly and puffed up bravado, or falling flat on their face, and or singing karaoke or doing whatever. And that is very endearing, and the character is very human, if very messed up. Like, hopefully you don't know many people that are like your main character in Disco, but like, I think it's just a wonderful way to look at choice and storytelling, which is to say, you can fall flat on your face, literally, figuratively, and do this, and it's okay, and it's fun, and it's as fun as succeeding and doing the big thing that you're trying to do. And you know, I think that obviously just the writing itself is so incredible, and the art and things like that. But really, a lot of it comes down to the decision to let you be a screwed up person and make that be a very entertaining thing, and very endearing rather than annoying, which it very easily could have been, I think.
All right. Jake, did you have one?
No, I was just going to gush about Pentiment. I really, really like it.
Thank you.
Thank you for it. Thank you for the team. You guys should be very proud of how it toes the line of being accessible, educational, but not like boring and weird, and just really, really entertaining. I'm just glad it exists. So thanks.
Thank you so much. It's very nice to hear.
All right, Josh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, mate. Okay, well, that was the interview with Josh. As we said, intimidatingly intelligent. We were saying off recording that most of our knowledge of history goes back to about 1984, when Back to the Future came out, or whenever that was, and it stops about there. So it's interesting to hear from a guy who knows a little bit further back than that. But before we move on, we're actually going to be doing our first ever ad read, which, you know, that's a new thing that we're doing. But we feel like to do that properly, we kind of need to get rid of Lucy, and you'll understand why when we start doing it. So, Lucy, could we just ask you to just hop off for a little bit? We're going to talk about some man stuff.
Okay, I'll be back. I'll be back in a
Sorry.
second.
Okay.
Bye, Lucy.
All right, boys. So now that the girls are gone, let me ask you: are you taking care down there?
I'm trying. I feel more compelled to now. That's for sure.
I don't know if I want to talk about this, Ralph. What do you mean?
Well, I think in front of hundreds of thousands of people, it's extremely important that you share with everyone your hair trimming regime as powered by Manscaped. Have you guys ever used Manscaped before it was sent to you?
I have not. Have you, Jake?
Okay.
No, this is my first test drive. This is a huge upgrade for me specifically because like I'm broke, so I was using some like weird bloodborne hedge clipper device, and
like Edward Scissorhands just doing these ones like this.
Yeah, it was bad.
Yes, totally.
So the lawnmower 4.0 has definitely been a huge upgrade. This thing is pretty premium.
It is obviously we don't want any rusty scissors anywhere near your most precious assets. And yeah, Manscaped obviously sell personal grooming stuff. I actually have used it in the past. It's very good quality stuff. It says reduces nicks, snags, and tugs in those delicate places.
Yes.
And so that's what it does, which is nice. It's water resistant, so you can use it in the shower. Just don't
Huge.
clog the drain, depending on how much you've got going on down there.
Yeah, you nasty animal.
The favorite thing that I got out of all this was the weed whacker.
Sure.
This thing is so nifty. It's safe. It's friendly. Doesn't hurt your nose. And as someone with really weird nose hairs, it's perfect for me.
In terms of safety too, the trimmer itself has an LED light on it, which is you think that wouldn't you're not doing it in the dark, but natural lighting in the average bathroom is bad.
Yes.
So to have a little light to really show the age of the crevices and endless valleys of wrinkles is pretty good. It's a way to dodge any nasty whoopsies.
That's it. There's also in the Performance Package 4.0 package, I've said package twice, package for your package, it comes with the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant and Crop Reviver Ball Toner, which will change your hygiene regime. And trust me when I say this, fellas, your balls will thank you. And actually, that has a TM next to it. So I think they've actually trademarked the phrase, your balls will thank you. Which,
Epic business move.
to be fair, that's a pretty good move. I would trademark that too.
Oh yeah.
Plus, it also comes with with some boxes and a shed travel bag, and all of this is 20% off when you order with the special offer code FPS at manscaped.com. 20% off, free shipping with manscaped.com. You can click the link in the description below. I think that's all we have to say on that. But thank you,
It makes
Manscaped.
for an excellent gift.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
for an
just saying.
excellent.
Just don't get it for your
Teacher.
Don't get it for your mom or your teacher.
yeah.
That would be awkward.
Get it for yourself. Get it for a homie. Don't get it to a teacher.
Yeah, your homies will thank you. Your teacher will flunk you. That's what will happen. And you'll probably get expelled. Okay, so
Yeah.
that's how it goes. Thank you, Manscaped, for sponsoring. And back to the show.
All right, we're all back now. I can't wait to watch that one back.
It's gonna be a wild ride.
Yeah, I'll bet. All right, let's go through the major game releases for the past 2 weeks. Who wants to take it? Jake, you leapt forward as if you were gonna
I was
dive
just
right
doing
in.
this. Yeah,
yeah.
I just
so
like video games. That's why I rub my hands together. I'll rattle these off. So for you folks listening out there, for I guess a span of 2 weeks or so, we got a bunch. Sonic Frontiers on all platforms, of course, that released on the 8th. God of War Ragnarok on PlayStation on the 9th. Tactics Ogre Reborn on everything but Xbox on the 11th. Pentiment on Xbox and PC. Also Somerville, which I really got to get to.
me too. I have it downloaded.
Yeah. Call of Duty Warzone 2.0 on the 16th. And another Dark Pictures anthology joint, The Devil in Me, on the 18th for all the major platforms.
I'm excited. Oh, excuse me for the hiccup. I'm excited for that one because it's like the H.H. Holmes inspired one with like all that shit going on. So I'm stoked for that one. Thank you, Jake. What's everyone been playing?
Well, I played a little bit of Somerville, actually.
Yeah, I want to hear what's up
Oh,
with
yeah,
that.
how is
look,
that?
only an hour and a bit, okay?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
don't not a definitive take, but I believe it's like a 3 to 4 hour game-ish.
I was talking to
So
Blessing. He said 4.
Okay, yeah. So I saw a chunk of it, and I had to stop, actually, purely because I was not having a good time.
Oh no.
Yeah, like it's I was a big fan of Limbo and Inside. I'm very much into your 2D side scrolly kind of, let's walk this way and whatever. I'm very into that. But this one, yeah, man, I don't know. It just I found it very clunky, very unclear about where you need to go. I was kind of just pressing myself into the sides of things to figure out if I could interact with something. That happened right from the start almost, and it just kind of kept going on and happening, and I was just not having a good time. And I read a bunch of reviews for it, and quite a few reviews said something similar, so I don't think I was fully off the mark with that one. It looks beautiful. Soundscape is amazing. It's got a lot going for it, for sure. I don't think it's bad by any means, and certainly the reviews don't indicate that, but I just was finding it frustrating enough that I was like, I don't want to keep doing this. And I had other things I was working on, so I just put it to one side. But that was it for me.
That's interesting, because those types of games, I love those types of games. It's like my favorite little subgenre. They shouldn't have that type of hurdle or frustration or roadblock.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think it's about immersing yourself in that kind of feeling, in that world. You just sort of seamlessly move through it. Like, obviously, you want to have some puzzles, but the puzzle should not be, what can I interact with? It should be, how can I utilize it? And I was finding so often that I was just bumping into the former that, it made me bounce. So, yeah.
Have you considered not being, maybe you're not smart enough?
I have considered that a lot. My comment section remind me of that repeatedly, so I can never forget, really.
Wow.
It's on the reg.
Oh my god.
So, yeah.
No. I have it downloaded. I understand there were a couple of performance issues. I don't know if that's been patched now.
I heard that too. Yep.
Yeah, so I'm okay to wait on that one. Actually, you know how I was saying I haven't played Plague Tale? I saw Digital Foundry tweet today that a patch just dropped and apparently it's improved performance on console massively. So I'm kind of glad I held back on that one. So maybe some of it will be something similar. Jake, you and I, and actually Ralph, you've played a little bit too. We've been playing Pentiment, which Jake just lit up there. So I'm gonna pass this one over to you.
Yeah, it's a nice, cool little game. The pitch is essentially, if you're into an Oxenfree, a Night in the Woods, insert another type of game like that I can't think of. If you're into that type of experience, that's what this is, but it also has the added great thing of having Obsidian DNA to it, where it has some really cool dialogue and a little bit of like a RPG dialogue type system that we touched on a little bit in the interview, but it is just such a unique thing for the time period it covers. It's 16th century Bavaria, so it's covering so many things like religion and how not only just the faith but also like the socioeconomic impacts of it, peasantry, nobility, the division between it, the fact that it also just covers all different types of art and how art is made and how art works in the economy, how writing and how the written word works in this economy, and then just having a murder mystery in the middle of it. That's what it really is. It's a character story and a murder mystery that also is just such a massive fanboy and teacher of this time period. And the amount of references that it throws out, the amount of things it's based on is just so cool. As someone who half paid attention in college to this stuff, it was the only stuff that kind of interested me. Just kind of having that revived through this has been really nice, but it's not inaccessible. It's really, I mean, how often do you back out with the book? So the game essentially has like all these little highlighted words and text, like any character or any phrase or like war or country or biblical thing will be highlighted, and all you do is hit a button and the game backs out of the storybook, and in the margins you'll see a little quick description of everything. Like that shit is awesome, I think, just for making it really easy. And on top of that, I'm sorry, I just keep rambling.
No.
But on top of that, in terms of accessibility, it's also the fact that the story and the language is very normal and real. Not everybody's like, oh, doth thou, like it's very, the language is understandable. The people come off real. You don't feel disconnected from them because it's like so far so in a different time period. It tells a real ass story that has a lot of, like the socioeconomic factors and how everything is like a gray area, and there's nuance to everything, and there's no perfect wrap up to a lot of angles or elements of the decision making in the story. And I like that.
Yeah.
It's just really, really creative.
I tweeted this when the embargo lifted, but like it's become my bedtime story. Like I'm playing it on Steam Deck, and
Cozy game.
it's a I love it. I love it when a game about murder is a cozy game. But no, it's like you mentioned it there. Like you learn so much. You learn about like the time period and all of the things that are impacting the characters within the world. But I think what really makes it special is that Andreas who's the artist who you play as. He's very much in like this turning point part of his life where he is on this adventure to kind of find out who he is, to become the master of his craft, which is, he's working in the scriptorium in this abbey, and he doesn't want to go home because he doesn't want to settle down. He doesn't want to grow up, essentially. So he's kind of in that state of arrested development, and then gets stuck right in the middle of this big, at least in Act 1, this murder mystery. And so that's the thing that I really like, is that the mystery itself is compelling. The world is incredibly compelling, and like it's this weird little Venn diagram of things that I'm interested in. So I studied German, and the killer or whoever is leaving notes in German, and so I am not deliberately hitting A on my controller, because I'm like, okay, I think that's the past version of this verb. I will get there, and it's like like we said in the interview, grew up Catholic, so I have like this bizarre interest in the church. I really enjoy mysteries, and there's a part in Act 2, and this is not really a spoiler, but you can say, give him a little bit more backstory. And so I, of course, said that he went to England and he went to London, and that's kind of then peppered in. So you kind of get this character who's learning about himself, and you have an impact and a hand in that. And I really enjoy just the way the game grows, because the different acts as well have so many different things, and like things happen to that town, in that town, that are just so interesting. And I can't wait for you guys to get to certain points, because I was texting Jake Decker about it, Jake 2, and I was like, did you know you could do this? And he was like, no. There are some bits where I have shamed the church. I have I was doing some bits where I was like, oh, the abbot is not going to like this. And when to Josh's point, when we were talking to him, he was like, when you are making decisions in a game that you are actually anguished over and that will stick with you, I think that's really something special, let alone the fact that this was a big passion project and it is as unique as it is. And I'm super stoked, and I hope more people play it. It's a great game.
Did you find yourself really struggling to choose certain things where it's almost like, for my character, I don't know if it was just mine specifically, but there were so many points where I had to stop and choose what to say, because I was like, wait, am I a douchebag? Like, do I sound like a douchebag? Yeah. Like, there's so much of that.
I've become really good at the stoic nod.
Yes.
I'm like, I won't say
It's a lot about what you don't say.
Yeah, a lot about what you don't say. And so I've become really good at that. But I think as well, there are some points, Josh even mentioned it, like there's this guy who's like super abusive to his wife and his kids, and like you're at dinner with them and you can decide how to handle that. And I kind of, I think moments like that, like the character moments, are just so well done that even though you just think it's, oh, I'm doing this meal to pass the time, to move the time within the game forward, but then you kind of get these moments that you might have otherwise just completely missed.
That one is a perfect example of what he was saying with compelling choices, because like in most video games in that situation, right, I feel like just because of how games are,
you'd be swinging punches.
You'd be throwing it, and you'd stand up and be like, don't talk to her that way.
Yeah.
I will fight you. But the way the game presents it all and the choices you get, it's so much more gray area than that. And it doesn't just make it like, oh, what? Like it really gives tension to it all, and I think it just improves the scene, even if there were no choices. Like it's just really well done.
It's a cool game. Please,
yeah,
play
it's really cool. I'm glad it exists. It's wild.
Yeah, me too.
It's check it out.
I've just started on Steam Deck. I'm like just like 1 hour in or whatever, but yeah, already really enjoying it, loving the marginalia. Like just, the visual style, the whole thing, how fresh it feels, how crisply it's written. I'm just like, yeah, cool. Let's keep going with this one.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad that you're
excited.
still digging it, because my only criticism of the game really is that it starts off a little slow.
Oh, straight
So-
away, I'm like, I was
Oh,
into
that
it. I
little
loved
dream
the way
sequence? I really like that.
I like that, but like
I loved
yeah.
how it introduced you to character choices so organically, and how it immediately started showing you the impact of those character choices as they became evident in conversation. Like, oh, I stayed in Italy for a while. What happened? What's going on over there? You know, like after you just selected that you hung out in Italy for a bit. I
Yeah.
love that stuff, and I was really digging it. So I'm keen. Plus, I'm playing on the Steam Deck as well. It just feels like it's made for that. Love it.
Yeah. Gerard, I think we talked about Sonic. Do you have any other lingering Sonic things, or do you want to talk about some of the indie games you played? Because you just had Indie Land.
Oh yeah, I had Indie Land.
how'd that
Indie
go?
Land.
It went very well. We raised $100,000 this year.
Holy
hundred
shit.
hundred
Yeah.
103,000 to be precise.
Incredible! Congrats.
Thank
Yeah,
you. I got my hair waxed. I ate a lot of hot peppers. I got an ephemeral tattoo of Shovel Knight. You can't really see. It's healing right now. And I have
What's an
ephemeral mean
tattoo?
temporary?
yes, it lasts
Okay, cool.
it lasts 9 to 18 months depending on the oil
Wow.
in your skin. And because we hit 100K, I actually have to get a real tattoo of Shovel Knight because that was the super goal. And so not only did I play a bunch of awesome indie games, which I'll tell you about one before I promote my own. Berserk Boy. If you guys have not
Ooh.
played Berserk Boy, you have to try out Berserk Boy.
I've never heard of it. Any relation to the comic or no?
No, not at all. Not at
Damn.
all.
That'd be sick.
Berserk Boy, I know the developers can hate me for saying this, but it's the easiest way. Berserk Boy answers the question, what if Mighty Number 9 was really, 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 really good?
Wow.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Good pitch.
It is incredible. And the music is T. Lopes from TMNT fame and Sonic Mania fame.
Okay. All
It,
right.
it is all about lightning fast momentum. You have different forms you can change at any given moment once you've unlocked them. It's all about style. It's freaking cool. Try the demo on Steam or wishlist it if you haven't. Super, super pumped about that. The other thing is that at Indieland, I announced that my second game that I am producing officially. There was LC that I announced during Steam's Next Fest. And now at Indieland, I announced I'm producing a new game called Gestalt Steam and Cinder. It is a steampunk Metroidvania game, and I am co-producing it with Jesse Cox and Dodger. So
That's awesome.
The three of us
Super
are
cool.
coming together to produce this game, and you can play the demo on Steam. And let me tell you, this game fucks. It is so. If you love Metroidvanias and you love Castlevania specifically, and you want that steampunk aesthetic, you're gonna dig this game a lot. Tons of cool progression scale systems, really great, beautiful pixel art. It's phenomenal, and I'm so honored to say that I'm producing the game. So yeah, self plug. Sorry.
No, don't apologize. You were showing it to me and Tam yesterday. It looks awesome.
Yeah, GameSpot did a highlight of it during the pandemic a couple years ago, but the game's changed a lot, and I'm excited to be involved in that change. It's gonna be really hype.
Exciting.
Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
All right, Ralph, round us out. What have you been playing?
Well, this week I have actually been playing Marvel's Midnight Suns. I got sent an early review code for that. That one, there's a preview embargo that dropped yesterday or the day before, and the reviews are later on, obviously. Surprising game. I really was not anticipating it to be this. I've like stayed relatively across it, but obviously not as across it as I should have been, because it turns out this game is quite different to what I was expecting. I really was expecting kind of like Marvel XCOM. Yeah. I know there was a card-based system, and I was ready for that, but I really was expecting just Marvel XCOM. It's not that. It's actually kind of two games. The first is Marvel XCOM, but with cards, and I really like that a lot. I actually think they've nailed that side of the equation.
Cardcom. Sorry.
Cardcom. That is sick. That's it. We're gonna roll with that.
Okay.
The other side of it is kind of like Fire Emblem, where you go back to this base of operations and you hang out with heroes and you do like dialogue choices to like make them happy or sad, and you hang out with them and read books with them by the fire to build your relationship. And as your relationship gets stronger, they get bonuses in combat, and you unlock new combo card attacks. And you also have this big island that the Abbey is on, and you walk around on it picking up herbs, and you use those herbs to progress side quests when you meet up with your buddies in this thing called Emo Kids, which is a club that's designed to explore your memories because you are a resurrected demon hunter and you've forgotten your past. And I know this is sounding weird, but this is actually what the game is on that side of the equation. And
How Fire Emblem? Like,
yeah,
can I, like,
you could have taken any Marvel references out that could be Fire Emblem.
I'm hoping that I can kiss Wolverine at some point, but I don't know yet.
Take him for tea.
Out, right?
Hey Blade, I brought you this gift. I brought you a teddy bear. Like, please make your meter go up.
Hey Bob,
this silver ring. No, so look, I'm not really loving that side of the equation, to be honest with you. I think a lot of that lives and dies on the portrayal of those characters and how interesting they are to talk to. Yeah. And they're just not interesting to talk to. Like, they have this, they're all written with the same sort of quippy voice.
No, for God's sake.
Yeah,
the MCU has so much to fucking answer for.
Every single one is just cracking jokes left, right, and center.
But they're all the edgy characters. Like, we have all these like more off-kilter ones.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't have the full roster. I'm 10 hours in, so I'm missing a lot, right? But I do have like Ghost Rider, for example.
Got Wolverine.
And I've got like Magic, Nico.
Blade.
I have Blade. Yeah, and Blade is a perfect example because like Blade is not a badass in this game. Like, he's just not. Like, he's just a really kind of nice guy that he wants to have a drink at the bar with you and talk about how he's annoyed about vampire movies and how they're all teenage romances, and that annoys him.
Does he make a sparkling vampire reference? Like a Twilight reference?
Yes, actually, yes.
Great.
We talk about, essentially we're talking about Twilight at the bar. And I like, and look, there's a way that could have worked, I think.
Yeah.
But it's not working for me. Maybe it works for other people. I don't know. I was so ready for like a kind of hardcore gritty take on these characters, with them telling me to fuck off and, you know, like whatever. I was down for that. The way these characters are written is very much like they're just kind of those NPCs that you meet in a BioWare RPG where they're like, if you really want to know my secrets, you have to get to know me better. And then like fade to black, and then you're back walking around the world and you're waiting for the next opportunity to like sit by the fireside with Blade reading a book together. Do you know what I mean? That is how that works. And so I'm not digging that side of the equation, but I really like this game. As in, the combat side of it is fucking cool. It's super fun. Yeah, like it's really interesting. They've done a huge amount to remix that formula. It is definitely not XCOM. It's a whole other thing, but it's equally deep and rewarding. It's more immediate. It's more about like making decisions turn by turn, whereas XCOM is quite like delayed gratification. You make decisions that pay off 6 or 7 turns later in XCOM. But I really like it, you know, and I'm keen to get back to it. Straight after this, man, I'm gonna go play some more, and I'm gonna go, you know, fucking grind that shit out because I'm into it. But the problem is that I need to do all of the talky stuff back at base because you just if you skip it, you're missing out on so much power because a lot of your progression is gated behind having relationships with these heroes, you know. So plus it runs like shit, unfortunately, at this point.
Oh boy.
On an RTX 4090, it's like struggling to hit 60 FPS when I'm walking around the Abbey, and the game does not look good, by the way. It's like a pretty basic looking game. So there's some optimization challenges there. It's still early, as in not early per se, but like we've still got a bit of time.
Weeks.
It's not a lot of time for a massive performance uplift to happen. I don't know. But to be fair, performance optimization on higher end GPUs is often problematic. They're always optimized for mid-tier PCs, so we shouldn't look into that too much. Like it runs well on Steam Deck, funnily enough. Like quite well actually. Yeah, it does. So that leads me to suspect that it probably is a high-end optimization issue. But yes,
I'm glad the gameplay is good because it's for Axis.
Yeah.
So
totally.
I mean,
that is. And the kits, like the cards that they have for the heroes, are so good. Like Spider-Man has like a like he, web slings, and one of his moves is like blind, and he has this other one where he like web slings between two targets, and he can chain between the two of. Like, it's hard to explain, to be honest with you, as I'm on this podcast now. But when you play it, you will be like, cool, you have actually translated the fantasy of these characters into cards really well. Like, they've nailed the gameplay side of it. And that's unsurprising, because Firaxis nail gameplay.
They do.
But I don't think they've nailed the narrative side of it, which again probably isn't super surprising, because they're not a narrative-led studio,
Ralph, you saying that, I had no interest in playing the game, and now I have. Now I'm intrigued. Now I'm genuinely excited to give it a shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same as like a Mario Rabbids thing. That's like a spin on the XCOM formula.
Yeah.
And I think that is a totally different take again. But I love that, because I'm like, I'm really down for that formula. And so even though I'm not enjoying all the story stuff, I'm still just having such a great time on the strategy gameplay side that I'm like, yeah, man, sign me up, So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it goes.
Yeah, I've got it downloaded, but I haven't had a chance to start it yet. And like I said, I've said so many times, my interest in Marvel is waning.
Yes.
But that gameplay stuff does sound like it could get me at least interested in Midnight Suns. At least interested in half of Midnight Suns.
And I think as well, that whole point about like your interest in Marvel is waning. It's like you've seen Doctor Strange and Iron Man and Spider-Man so many times now. And I get that they need to include, or they should, or whatever, include these characters because it helps sell units. I get that 100%. But because I'm not gelling with them, I'm also like, oh, I really wish you didn't include these characters now, because I wish you included a whole bunch of other characters that are totally random and totally new, and I get to know them. Like, I just mix them. I wish they mixed that up a little bit more than they have, because I'm feeling the same way about Marvel. This would have been an opportunity to like go their own way on that. It's a shame they didn't do that.
Kind of just wish it had just been, and this is my personal bias because I love X-Men, but like, could have just done an X-Men one, huh? You've got an X-Man for everything.
100% agree with you. Yep,
Yeah,
I totally
damn.
agree.
Yeah.
Yep.
But you got to get Captain America's and whoever's in.
Yep. I don't know. Sure. Hulk's a bad guy in it,
Girl.
and Venom.
Oh,
Venom is in
okay.
there. They're bad guys though. They've been like
Oh.
possessed, and they're pretty fun to fight. So they're good.
Okay. All right, that's what we've been playing over the last 2 weeks, but what were we playing all those years ago? Sorry, that was really cheesy.
Great
to
segue.
I
love it.
That's
Thanks.
good. I like
Well,
it. Yeah.
so Gerard, I'll pass this over. Tell us about this Fortnite in games.
This Fortnite in games. It's November, you guys, which means that a lot of games came out during the holidays throughout our lives.
Oh,
and
yeah.
the list is pretty impressive. Makes
Wait.
sense. Yes.
These are the games of our lives.
Perfect.
Games of our lives. That's probably better than Fortnite in gaming.
Well,
But either way,
I think they
no?
both work.
they both
I
work.
like yours.
I like
just-
that.
I just want to.
Game-
I just
like
want to
that.
be cheesy
We
with
might
it.
have to
Game-
run with that.
Games of our lives. Someone out there is going to make a theme song. We appreciate it.
Let us know in the comments if you think that's what it should be called.
Thank you in advance.
I'll go first to break that ice. November 7th, 2000, a little game 22 years ago called WWF No Mercy for the Nintendo 64 came out, and that is one of my favorites. And I know that there's not a lot of wrestling fans on here, but that is objectively one of the best wrestling games ever made that everyone our age at the time did play. So
Even I
Incredible.
played that.
Even I played that one.
you've heard of it, you've seen it, it's iconic. WWF No Mercy. Jake, what about you, my friend?
So I have two. I'm just going to do one first. November 13th, my birthday, 2007, which is 15 years ago, the original Assassin's Creed. That whisked me away, where I know it wasn't that great, but I thought the graphics were so cool and the setting so unique.
Yep.
I stand for that game so hard. And I'm glad that they stuck with it and they made a second one, because the rest is history.
Hey.
Oh.
Hey, we did it. Ralph, what's your pick?
21 years ago, on November 15th, the world was introduced to the Master Chief. He came alive in Combat Evolved. Can you believe that? I was
Yeah.
saying before the podcast that our boy, he's 21, he can drink now. So Master Chief, he's getting laid and he's getting
seen
drunk.
his ass.
It's
Yep.
it's a big year.
It's a
for
big
Master
year for the Chief.
Huge year for the Chief. Coming of age story for old mate Chief. Love it.
And for me, 8 years ago on November 18th, one near and dear to my heart, Dragon Age Inquisition. Last time, we talked about Dragon Age Origins was 13 years ago. It's been 8 years since Dragon Age Inquisition. I gotta see that Dread Wolf. I need to know what that egg boy is up to. Okay, I've
I
waited
feel like
long
that
enough.
one just came out.
I was
man.
about to say that.
Yeah,
it feels like
yeah.
it just came out.
4 years ago.
I got to go to
today.
BioWare for that one.
Did you? That's
yeah,
cool.
I did, and I almost wet myself. I was so excited.
That's not good.
No, but I held it in. It was fine.
Oh, good. 4 years ago, Fallout 76, baby. 4 years ago. Ooh, talk about a moment. That was the one right there.
We can end on a positive. In 18 years ago, November 17th, 2004, 18 years ago, Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater.
Wow.
Mamma mia.
Best Metal Gear, question mark? Do you reckon
I
that's the
haven't
best
I
Metal
haven't
Gear?
played it. That was the one I was up to in my stream
Alright.
playthrough. So I need to get
What a
back to
thrill.
that.
Sure.
What a thrill.
Do you reckon that was best Metal Gear, Jake?
No.
No. Number one?
I don't. I'm on the spot. I get nervous. My favorite's Metal Gear Solid 1.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Real gamer stuff.
People were telling me that you're either a 1 in 3 person or you're a 2 in 4 person.
I mean, I've never met a 2 and 4 person, to be honest. Has anyone know a 2 and 4 person?
No, I know a lot of 1 and 4s.
Interesting.
I know
know a
people
lot
who
of-
mention
I know-
Peace Walk Up, and they're like,
I know
that's
a lot of.
actually the best.
Do we know any Portable Ops / Metal Gear
that's right.
Acid fans?
virtual missions or whatever they were called. What were they called? Like
VR missions.
Oh,
VR missions. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, that was this week's episode of the Friends Per Second podcast. Thank you all so much for joining us. If you are listening on podcast services, please leave us a rating and a review. It really helps us out. We appreciate you. Or if you're watching on Ralph's channel, leave us a comment. Why not?
Something nice.
Thank you for sticking with us. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'm Lucy James. You can find me maybe at Lucy James Games. I'm Lucy James Games on most things, but depending on which social platforms collapse over the next month or so,
Yeah.
we'll see. Gerard, where can folks find you?
At Completionist on social media or at The Completionist. Or you can find me on YouTube at That One Video Gamer.
Lovely. Jake.
You can find me on GameRank sometimes, but you can also find me everywhere else on the internet as Jake Baldino, B as in boy, A-L, D as in dog, I-N-O. Sorry, I'm used to spelling my name over the phone for people.
Who the fuck needs Baldino spelt out for them on the
Italian
phone?
last names throw people off. As soon as they
Baldino?
hear it, you have to know, Ralph. With Italian people, people
I
will
mean-
throw in I's and O's extra places, and it's always wrong.
I would love to see the alternative spelling of Baldino as someone explains it over the phone. Like, I would like, what is
Wow.
that spelling?
With an H somewhere.
Yeah, Baldinino,
Yeah,
Baldini,
sure.
Baldwin. I've seen them all on my mail.
Love it.
I'm Ralph. What about
Yes,
you?
I'm Ralph. I'm here on the Shill Up channel and also on Twitter, but less these. I'm actually on Mastodon now. I'm just like
I
trying that out.
couldn't
I don't
figure
know.
out how to
Okay.
get on it.
Yeah. Look. I don't think it's good in inverted commas, but I'm like trying it to see what it's like, and it's got some stuff about it that I like. But I just don't like being on Twitter much these days. I'm just like there way less. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just like seeing how that feels. We'll see how it goes.